Welcome everybody. I'm going to call to order as the vice chair. Our chairman is absent today due to an illness in her family. So I will call the meeting to order at this time, and we have a pledge of allegiance, which Director Peck will lead us. Do you remember the words?
Repeat after me. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Denise, will you call the roll to establish a quorum?
Director Peck?
Here.
Director Buckle?
Yes.
Director Sabo?
Here.
Director Miller?
Here.
And Chair Thomas out.
Okay. And this is a time for communications, announcements, and informational items from the staff and or the board. Staff, do you have any items that you want to share with the board?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any other directors want to share anything with the board? I have a couple of things. One, Director, our chairperson, Sonny, has indicated that she's going to try to weigh in via phone during the meeting. And we've had a discussion, and apparently the Brown Act allows for that, given her circumstances as to why she can't attend, that being a family emergency. And so when she comes on board, I will allow her into the meeting as a member of the board, subject to a vote of the board members, which I will take.
Yeah.
Okay, doing that.
Yeah, let me clarify a little bit. The Brown Act does allow, under the new rules that were just amended and put in place in January 1, we had a presentation about it, I don't know, about a month or so ago. It does allow for an item to be added to the agenda that we didn't know about due to a medical emergency. She's helping someone with some medical issues. It does allow an item to be added to consider allowing the board member to attend remotely. And then if that's the case, if it's approved by the board, then well, first there's a two-step process. First, you have to add the item to the agenda. That requires a 4/5 vote of those in attendance, which in this instance would be all of you. And if it's approved, then that would add it to the agenda. Then you need a motion and a vote to allow her to participate. And that's by a simple majority. When she does log on, we'll deal with it. If she logs on at that point in time, we'll deal with it. We just don't know if and when that's
I
going to
get it. Are there any questions from the board as to what Scott has said and what we're trying to do here? So I didn't cover this in my MBA program. Jeez. So anyhow, the second announcement, we will do that following item C on the agenda. Second thing I want to do is apologize to members of the public that were concerned about the fact that our request for proposal for the fire department and the architect for the potential new terminal building, were not on the website. We will remedy that in the future, but apologies, it was a matter of competitiveness because the proposals all had dollars associated with it, and we didn't think it was appropriate to share those dollars for the benefit of each one of the proponents. So apologies, that will not happen again in the future.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yes.
clarify a minute? The RFPs and the backup documentation that everybody had to use to bid, those are on the website. They have not been taken down. The proposals that each party provided to the airport. Those have not yet been added. They will be added after this meeting because we felt.
Okay, well, I'm glad you clarified that. I couldn't find the RFPs myself, and I spent a long time looking, so any event, hopefully that we will improve that process of being able to look at the RFPs that are outstanding for any of our contracts, and number two, I think we'll remedy the situation as to whether or not the proposals can be prepared and posted online, separate and apart from the cost elements of each one of the proposals. So that's the end of my announcements here, and I will proceed to take the advice of council and what's the first thing I have to do? I have to get agreement among the board that we will do what?
But I think the first thing you want to do is you need to get to the
Well,
proposal.
an additional agenda item.
Well, that will come if and when board member Sani comes online. Then we'll take a break, we'll deal with that item, and then we'll restart.
We can't do that ahead of time. I apologize to the public, but this is kind of new territory for us.
Yeah, it would be easier, because we don't know, again, we don't know if she's going to join, so it'd be easier to take care of it when she does join.
Well, I hate to interrupt the process proceedings. Is there anything wrong with us anticipating that she will join and going in and making that decision now? You see anything wrong with that?
You can, again, it's the pleasure of the board. If that's what you'd like to do, then you
It's
can.
my pleasure. Can I make that as an agenda item and bring it to the board?
I think we need a motion, I'll be happy to make one.
I'll second it.
Okay. What's your motion?
My motion is that we allow Chair Sani to participate as a member of the board if and when
Now,
she.
Hang on 1 minute, let me get something here.
The first motion
So-
is to add it to the agenda.
So let's dot the i's and cross the t's here. So the following item came to the attention of airport staff subsequent to the posting of the agenda for this April 5, 2023 meeting. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, staff is requesting that the board take action to add this item to the agenda. And the agenda item to add would be item number, where are we, are we at D?
D.
So we'll add it as C1, just to put it in there. Add item C1, amend the agenda to add item C1 as follows. Pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 2449, the board will consider approving the emergency circumstances for one board member to attend this meeting virtually. And the reason for her attendance is a medical emergency. She's taking care of someone this morning.
Okay.
So that requires a motion, a second, and
A motion to consider that.
a motion to add this item to the agenda. Yes.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Second.
Oh, good. I'm glad we have an experienced hand here. So, all right, having heard the motion, any discussion among the board members? Any members of the public want to weigh in on this? If you understand it? Oh, good.
Hello, my name is Hans Hutzner,
We know you, yes.
the City of Monterey. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I would be curious to find out when the chair is joining you, if she had the benefit of listening to the presentations. If she didn't have the benefit of listening to the presentations, I think the board should consider whether she is able to weigh in and give you a recommendation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
We will certainly announce when she is able to join in, and she will have the recording available to her.
Okay. I realize that we have a lot of fire personnel here, but is there any way to kind of tone down the emergency calls or the calls between yourselves? Just as kind of a distraction. So if there's no further discussion, no further comment from the public, I will call for a vote on this motion. And don't ask me to repeat it.
Director Pick?
Aye.
Director Leffel,
No.
Director Sabo,
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Okay, this matter did not pass, so she will not be able to participate remotely. It requires, to add an item to the agenda requires a 4/5 supermajority, and you had a 75% vote. So it did not pass. So the item is not added to the agenda. She will not be able to participate remotely.
Okay, so if she has a, I think it was her intention to wait and maybe join as a member of the public, somebody has to block her.
She can listen as a member of the public.
She
We
just
don't-
can't speak
we don't, any member of the public can dial into Zoom and listen to the meeting.
and not speak.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry for my lack of clarity on this. Okay, there is no agenda item C2. We'll move on at this point to the regular agenda items, and that would be items 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these will be presentations by the City of Monterey Fire Department, and then the presentation by JJ Protective Services. At this, what will happen here is we will hear the presentations from both entities, and at the end of the presentations, before the board goes into deliberations about the presentations, the public will have an opportunity to comment on the fire proposal and the presentations themselves. I will call for that. And that will be my guide.
That's okay. I think you're correct.
Okay.
I would point out and remind the chair that we did ask each individual presenter to provide that courtesy for the other, so.
Okay, and this is by our discussion ahead of time, we would ask that, given that the City of Monterey is the first presenter, and it's somewhat proprietary information that'll be presented and competitive information, that any members of the Pro-Tec team kindly excuse themselves until it's time for their presentation. Do we have any members of the Pro-Tec team here? If so, raise your hand. Okay, or hold your peace. Okay.
Or at least
Does that
until
work
it's
for
your
you?
turn.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would be what we would ask.
All right, so having said all that, we will now move on to item D1, which is a presentation by the City of Monterey Fire Department. And we're running a little bit behind, but it's my intention to let you complete your presentation, and afterwards take some degree of time to answer any questions from the board. This might mean that we spill over into past noon time, which I think for the benefit of the public is okay. So, having said that, City of Monterey, who's speaking for the City of Monterey?
So, good morning again.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for allowing us to present today our proposal. The City of Monterey has a long tradition in providing regional fire services. It started a long time ago when we worked on the Presidio of Monterey. And in 2014, I had the opportunity to join the airport district and our fire department here to celebrate the offering and the acceptance of services by our Monterey City Fire Department for the airport. And that collaboration started in 2014. And I think we put a cost proposal together for you that is interesting. I need to share with you our firefighters are the best and the brightest you can hire. We have an excellent fire department that excels in so many ways. It's battle hardened over the past years. We had many incidents where we had to supply firefighters for fire strike assignments across the state. Thankfully this year we didn't start off as early as we did in previous years. So without further ado, I will ask our Fire Chief, Gordon Panholzer, who is your Fire Chief, to present our proposal to you. And keep in mind, our firefighters are your firefighters. These were the firefighters we integrated in 2014 into our workforce. And surprise to all of us, most of them are still here on the airport. So with that, Gordon.
Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board. Gavin Panholzer, your fire chief, and I'm pleased to be here to briefly overview our proposal and then be available to answer any questions. All right, a clicker here.
Where's the other right here?
Sir. Oh, okay. Okay, which button does it?
You got it upside down, right?
No, that's it.
Oh, yeah, okay, there you go, all right.
Turn it on.
All right, there we go. As the city manager mentioned, the city of Monterey has a long history of providing regional fire services, starting in 1956 when we first entered into an agreement with the city of Monterey and the U.S. Army to provide services. Numerous local studies have shown over the years that the regional approach to fire services is very effective and the most efficient way to provide those services. As a matter of fact, the 2020 Municipal Services Review conducted by Monterey County LAFCO, in there's a quote that says, in future goals or takeaways, it's encouraging all parties to continue expanding existing partnerships and dialogues as part of the ongoing effort to provide, to support improved EMS and fire services. So what we are here is suggesting that we have an opportunity to continue that partnership and improve. Other agencies and local jurisdictions that we partner with, the City of Sand City, City of Pacific Grove, City of Carmel by the Sea, the Naval Boat Support Activity Monterey, and La Mesa Village. What you get with the Monterey Fire Department is an all-risk fire service fire department. In addition to doing aircraft rescue and firefighting, we provide emergency medical services. And what you get with emergency medical services, we are an advanced life support provider. So we provide paramedic services, not just basic life support for in your RFP. And then we provide fire suppression, both structural and wildland, rescue and extrication services, hazardous materials responses. We are part of staffing a countywide urban search and rescue team. We have a marine safety and rescue program, which we have a boat out on the bay. So I know that's part of the airport master plan, and the airport's obligation is to ensure if something goes in the drink out there that we are prepared to respond to that alongside the Coast Guard. And we have experience with and ability to do large-scale incident management. In addition, we also provide non-emergency services. We've been providing the airfield inspections out here and certainly intend to continue doing that. We provide full-scale fire prevention services, community risk reduction and public education services. CPR training, we've provided that for your police department on a regular basis. We have a really unique asset in our community emergency response team. That's a group of volunteers that are trained to support us in emergency operations. So in large-scale emergencies, they come out and provide a lot of support services, and they can field up to about 50 people, 60 people who will show up within about 20 minutes, half hour of being requested. And then certainly, as we have been providing for the airport, we have a fleet services division in the city and provide mechanical services with a certified emergency vehicle technician on staff. 10 years ago, we made a commitment. We made a commitment to provide to the Monterey Regional Airport excellent fire and emergency services. But we made another commitment, and that was to your former employees that were Monterey Airport District employees. And we made a commitment to be a good employer for them. And we've carried out that commitment for the last 10 years on both fronts. And as Mr. Uslar mentioned, we still have a majority of the employees that came over from the airport are still with us. And many of them have continued to work out here at the station because they know it well. As a matter of fact, last bullet there, amongst our current employees, we have 165 years of providing service to the Monterey Regional Airport. So far above and beyond anything that anybody else can provide.
That's before the brothers Wright took off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We've been providing service longer than flooding's been around. Good point. So our employees are your employees. Some of them were actually employed by you, but we are part of your staff. Your RFP requested that the provider has its employees standing in the shoes of airport personnel. We've been doing that for 10 years, and some of our folks have been doing that for another 20 years prior to that. We know the airport, and we know its operations. We have an excellent relationship with your staff here. We work very closely with operations, and I know that they have intimated that they hope that we continue to provide the services here because of the excellent working relationship we have. We provide services above and beyond what your RFP calls for at no additional charge. Planning for and providing for staffing of special events. We've been here for what used to be called the McCalls and now is the Motorlux. We're out here part of the planning team right from the beginning to ensure that that event gets pulled off safely and efficiently and works well. We work very closely with all your other tenants as well, the major providers, the fixed-based operators. We have excellent relationship with them, and we've been working together with them for many years. You may recall that a couple years ago when we were all dealing with the pandemic, we provided a vaccine clinic right here at the airport with our staff administering vaccines to your staff and their families and the community and the public long before any other provider would have been willing and able to do that, because we pushed the envelope on defining what was emergency services personnel and included our airport family in that definition. We have successfully planned and executed 3 triennial drills as your fire department, and received very high marks from the reviewers and from the FAA on that. And we've also done the in-between years of the tabletop exercises. We've either partnered with your staff to put those on or actually put those on. Another important thing about us is we are local. The majority of our personnel live within 1 hour of the area. So we have some folks in Santa Cruz, Salinas, whatever, but we have people that are available. So if a staffing challenge should come up, somebody goes home sick and we need to fill a seat quickly, we can do that very quickly because we have people that are immediately available. We don't have to fly somebody in from somewhere on the East Coast or something to get staffing in here. We know the area, we know our unique community, and we know the people. We have relationships and partnerships with the same people that the airport district has relationships and partnerships with. We are part of the larger family of service providers and the businesses in the area here. And very importantly, our personnel are your passengers. As a matter of fact, just last night I booked another flight in and out of the Monterey airport for a vacation I'm taking in a month. So we are fully vested in the success of the airport. It means a lot to us that this airport is successful and safe and operating well, because it is in our community. Yep. Depth of resources. Another thing that you get with the City of Monterey and the Monterey Fire Department is not just a staffed ARF and a staffed engine here at the airport. You get a whole fleet of resources immediately available. We staff 5 additional engine companies every day, as I mentioned, including paramedic services. We staff a truck company and a 24-hour on-duty division chief, not one of the staff here at the airport, but somebody who's a chief officer that can come in and oversee major incidents and deal with other issues necessary, especially relating with staff members here and integrating with operations. Available 24/7, 365. And then we have local administrative chief officers, so those of us that work the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, actually we work like a 24/7, 365 job, but we're here, we're available. We all live locally and can come in off duty and after hours and deal with any kind of an issue that might come up. We have existing, current, long-term mutual aid and automatic aid agreements with all local fire agencies. We know that there's times when an incident will be so large that we cannot manage it ourselves, and we have those resources immediately available to us right now because of existing agreements. And this is a nice feature that right after the airport came on board to the Monterey Fire Services system, we went through an ISO, an Insurance Services Office review of the fire department, and the airport's fire service rating went from a 4 to a 2. A 1 is the best you can get. So, and insurance providers look at that number as an indicator of how much they charge for a premium because of the level of protection that the airport has. So the insurance that you pay on this building is in part driven by the services that you get from us. The price is driven by that. An important thing about Bechtel Resources is just last week, sadly we had an airport employee experience a tragic accident here on the airport. We responded naturally with the engine that's available here at the airport, but recognizing that it was a serious injury and needed better care, we immediately dispatched the second engine from off-site so that we could provide the advanced life support paramedic services. And a chief officer immediately responded. When we determined it was an airport employee, the assistant chief responded out here to make sure that that employee was getting the best care and treatment, and coordinated with your administrative staff to ensure they were constantly kept informed of what was happening and how that employee was being treated. That's what you get from the Monterey Fire Department. That depth and that caring, and that we consider you part of our families. It's important to think not about what's day-to-day, but the what if. If a significant event were to happen here on the Monterey Airport, the staffing at the airport fire station is totally inadequate to handle that emergency. It provides the immediate first effective response. The purpose of having a staffed airport firefighting unit is to create that clear exit path for those people on the airplane that are able to extricate themselves to provide them that safe path of exit. It's not designed to put out the fire. It's not designed to do any kind of a rescue. You need additional resources for that. Monterey has 3 additional fully staffed companies with about 7 minutes response time to the airport, within 7 minutes. And we can provide the full first alarm response of 4 engines, a ladder truck, the ARF unit, and a chief officer within 10 minutes. Nobody else is in a position to provide that level of service to the airport in that what-if scenario. We have personnel that have direct experience in handling aircraft emergencies, significant aircraft emergencies, and we have people who have had experience handling mass casualty emergencies, which is probably what an aircraft emergency will amount to being. Fire will be out fairly quickly. Now you have a lot of people to deal with. On ARF services, we currently have 12 fully qualified current ARF personnel. They're the ones that are working in your station right now. We have a long-term agreement with the Dallas-Fort Worth training facility because we know that we need to provide this on an ongoing basis. The personnel all here assigned to the airport station have all been qualified as ARF personnel, and certainly anybody that is on the ARF has all the required mandatory training, and we've passed all the FAA inspections and reviews on that. Every single Monterey firefighter gets training on airport operations, on how we do business out here, and during their probationary year, they spend some time working at this station so that they know how things happen out here. They get to know the people and the operations. And all of our division chiefs also have had the ARF training. We send them to Dallas-Fort Worth, and the reason for that is after that Asiana crash, one of the major takeaways was that the chief officers that responded to that did not know the details of the airport operations. And so once that happened, I made a commitment that we were going to make sure that our folks were not going to be in that position.
You have 3 more minutes.
Excellent. I'm coming to the end here. So I know that our proposal, especially if you look at the bottom line price, is probably more expensive than the other one. I guess a little bit of the adage, you get what you pay for, holds true there. But what we did is we priced it for exactly what the RFP said, that it called for the staffing the station with 3 personnel and providing all the other ancillary support service, making sure the training's done, etc. But we do business a little bit differently with our partners. We prefer using the projection true-up methodology, so we give you a price each year, and then we go back and make sure that you didn't pay too much, so that we go back and true it up and look at what what were the actual costs, and we provide you all of the background data and everything to show you that you're only paying for what it actually costs. But more importantly is, in our proposal, we state that we want to negotiate the price to be something that works for both of us. Over the last 10 years, we have benefited from having the engine company here available to respond to parts of Monterey. Unfortunately, with the relocation of the fire station, it changes the dynamic. But we firmly believe that there's still an opportunity that we can get, that the city of Monterey can benefit from these resources. And so we want to continue to explore that. There are some things we have to, one of the things that needs to be done is we need to explore what it would take to get permission to cross the runway, because responding around the runway is not feasible. We've already timed that out to see how it would work. But that would require an agreement between the tower and the airport itself to allow that. So we need to explore those things, and we believe that we can, once again, find a great way to partner in the benefit of having the station staffed out here, so that it can also benefit the city of Monterey residents. And certainly that would come with a considerable reduction in cost to the airport, because we would be sharing in the costs. The other thing that we do for our partners is we constantly are looking for grant opportunities. We've had staffing grants. The airport has benefited from cost reductions because of the staffing grants that the federal government pays to help cover the cost of some of our staff. We get equipment grants where we purchase equipment and things like that using grant money, and we always share the benefit of that grant with all of our partners. So given all those things, I think there's only one clear choice, and that is that you continue to partner with the city of Monterey and be part of this very effective and efficient regional fire services system. So thank you, and with that, I'm prepared to answer.
Thank you,
questions.
Chief. Good presentation. And now I'll bring it back to the board for questions of the city of Monterey and the chief. Carl, do you have questions?
Yes, I have questions in the statement. First, thank you. I've been on the board here a long time. During these last 10 years, we really haven't had a lot of issues that come before the board. I can't really think of one other than a mechanical thing that came up, but that's value. There's a value to us not having to worry about this fire service. But the question I have is, what is that value worth? We're looking at an increase of almost $2 million, more than 100%, well, more like 150% increase on what we're paying. I just signed a check this morning for fire service, $112,000. Your proposal would be, the next checks we sign would be $260,000. That's quite an increase.
And that is because, as I mentioned, the proposal, the bottom line price in the proposal reflects if we do not do any regional benefit or anything like that, I'm confident that we can reduce that substantially in working out the details of how we cost share and continue the regional benefit approach.
One of the big disappointments for me, for like 12 years, 13 years, we've had a committee. We used to get together on a regular basis and talk about these things. I mean, just off the top of my head, my background is not in fire service, sort of a little bit related on public safety, but not fire service. But why couldn't we stage a structure engine on the south side? A lot easier to respond across the runway in a car, not a big fire engine. Cars traverse the runways on a regular basis. But we're not meeting anymore, we're not talking, and we seem to talk through lawyers now and not to one another about solutions. Now we're asked to approve. You're saying that maybe this price will come down, but the contract we would be approving would be 150% increase for service. And during your time here, those 10 years, the responses off airport far outnumber the responses on airport, don't they?
They do. So a couple of things. I don't believe you're approving a contract today. You would be providing direction to the staff to negotiate that contract. there isn't a contract in front of you, so the final bottom line of that contract would be to work out. That's what, as you mentioned, the lawyers will have to get together and have those conversations. And yes, you are correct. If you look back at the history, the contract originally started at $1.65 million, and it's come down since then because of the negotiations that we've done, and we've been willing to sit down at the table and say, how can we make this work better for all of us? And we shifted more of the costs to the city of Monterey by looking at where are the benefits, and let's balance the cost sharing based on the number of responses in each area. And yes, about 5/6 of the responses from the station were in its current location are into the city of Monterey or off airport property. That would probably change because of the change of the location of the station, but I'm still confident that there's a fair number of responses that would be off property, and we'd be willing to apply the same formula.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all I got.
Oh, well, open to you.
Thank you, Chair.
Pick.
Chief Handles, it's great to see you. And great to see you, Hans, and the rest of the firefighting team from Monterey. First of all, let me echo Director Miller's thanks for great service over years. I'm relatively new to the board, but of course I know you guys from a different perspective, and I'm keenly aware of the quality and the esprit that the department brings to its fire service, not only in Monterey, but here at the airport and regionally. So we're faced with having to give direction to staff based on the proposals as submitted. The proposals as submitted are pretty significantly apart. I think what I hear you saying, Gowdens, is let's keep talking and see if we can get to a better price point. We may or may not have that ability once we get to the point of giving direction to staff. But one question I have for you is, what value does the city place on the fire station on the north side? Was that factored into your proposal as submitted?
The fire station positioned on the north side of the airport would certainly be able to serve a different portion of Monterey. Unfortunately, we have a fire station that's within minutes from there, and if you add the time to get through the security gates to respond off property at the airport, there isn't a huge benefit to the station into that part of Monterey. But like I said, we believe that there are opportunities to explore a different, having permission with the airport tower, for example. And my understanding is that involves an agreement between the airport district and the tower to allow for us to respond across the runway. And it could be only during certain times of the day or something to that effect, in which case then the new location doesn't add substantial time. It would probably add about 45 seconds response time to serve the same areas that the station the south side station currently serves. So there could be a good value to that. We're also open to having conversations with other neighboring jurisdictions. I know that the city of Del Rey Oaks has been approached in the past. We've already started some dialogue with the city of Del Rey Oaks to see if maybe there's an opportunity to make that station closer now to our Ryan Ranch area and that part. But those are conversations that still need to be had. And that particular one would be probably one a little further in the future. But certainly we're always looking for opportunities to provide the regional approach and service. With respect to the price of the contract, I've been involved in numerous RFPs looking for consultants and service providers to provide service. And it's typically, the process is almost always find the one that's going to do the best job for you, and then sit down at the table, regardless of what the price was in the contract. How can we get to the price that we need to get to? Do that all the time. That's common practice in public negotiations and public contracting. And so that's why I'm saying that certainly would be the appropriate way for us to move forward with this.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Director Vato.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you. I guess I was really puzzled by, and I've sat here now for 14 years, and I've sat on some other public boards. I don't think I've ever seen, though, an RFP that was like, hey, this is kind of what we're thinking, but we'd love to negotiate. The bids and the RFPs that I see are pretty set, like this is what we're gonna charge, this is what our cost is. And so it's sit down and weigh them and see. We're, you know, I have a financial background, and we are financial stewards of public money. So it's important that we make good decisions for the entire community, because if we overspend in one area, it suffers in another area. And that's always important, I think, to all of us, that we make sure that we keep our eye on the ball. So I'm just puzzled of why it was, I guess, had so many holes in it.
I'm sorry, I didn't feel that way, that the proposal had too many holes in it. As you may recall, when I first became the fire chief in the city of Monterey, the RFP process for the fire services at that time had just been completed, and the city of Monterey had been selected. And my first job here, my first significant job here was to work very closely with, at that time, Director Tom Greer and Scott Hoover, to work out, and you guys had hired Citygate Associates, and we sat down and we talked numbers. We talked about how do we get to the number that the airport needs to get to, and how do we make sure that we cover the bases and we do what we need to do. That wasn't based on, that's what we did. We negotiated the details of the contract, including the dollar cost and how the things were going to be costed out, so that the airport was getting the deal that we would need. So.
And if I may add, you're looking at a contract for professional services. And first of all, when you do a contract for professional services, you are inclined not to look at pricing as the primary concern. This is not a construction contract where you apply low bid for construction, or when you buy an ARF, you look for the ARF provider and select the bid. This is a professional services contract that you select first and foremost who you think is the most qualified respondents. And then as part of the selection process, you sit down and you discuss the RFP or the proposal. That's standard procedure when you are hiring professional services contracts, at least in the city of Monterey. And you sit down and you discuss how can we take off cost. Have we really considered everything? This is in other words, standard procedure. The idea that Director Miller brought up with the fire engine stationed on the south side is one of those ideas that then are part of the actual making the contract final and agreeing on the final price. So I hear what you say, Director Leffel. I just wanted to throw in this differentiation of the notion, because this is a professional services contract, and as such, absolutely open for negotiations. If you have a construction contract, you want to have equipment contracts, low bid will prevail. First and foremost, you have to look at the quality of the services, and you get what you pay for.
So along that line, I think when we first did the contract with Monterey, and I was all for it, because I think it really gave the opportunity for our firefighters to join a larger organization. They had more upward mobility, they had more opportunity to cross-train and other things. I think it was a win for everybody. And for me, it was like the best thing we could give our employees was to put them in a larger group. But with that, I think our first contract, was about 1.8 million. It was higher than it is today, because as you trued up, you found that, I guess, because I'm not involved in the true up, is that we had paid maybe a little more, so therefore we would have a reduction over the next 3 or 4 years as we leveled that out. So I understand that the 1.3 that we're 1.4 that we're paying now is probably not an accurate number, because part of that reflects a catch-up with some other past payments. I'm understanding all of that. But even at that, when we look at the numbers, and you have full insight into what everything costs here, because you're here. So I was just flabbergasted at the huge increase in price of what it went from even before we had a reduction to what it is today. I just have to say, that was just like, wow. So I too kind of consider the value of a brand new station that is state of the art. I think you all have been suffering in a less than state of the art station. And also the fact that we provide some pretty good updated equipment, because with FAA and with our ability with occasionally new fire trucks, new opportunities for things, we don't just say, can you bring us everything? We also provide some, I think, updated equipment and are a pretty good partner in that. So for me, as I said, I'm puzzled with the dollars. They just were like, wow. And I guess I'm sad that we haven't had negotiations for a long time. I look at the fire prevention piece in the slide, and I know that we had an issue with some trees, which to me are partly a fire prevention thing, and I guess I would have asked that our fire partner weigh in a little bit more on that. I think when I look at the long-standing mutual aid, and I have a question. So if we were to choose another provider, does that mean there is no mutual aid, that you would not answer calls to the airport?
Currently, the only other provider in consideration has no mutual aid agreements in place with any other fire agency here locally. Mutual aid, by definition, is back and forth. If the provider only staffs the station as per the RFP, they would not be providing, could not provide us with an engine company that's comparable to what we expect, because it wouldn't be staffed.
So they would have to contract with you?
They would have to sit down with us and I mean, I'm not gonna say no, we're not gonna respond. That would be
I'm not
totally
trying to
contrary to you know, the ethical core of what I believe in. But the fact of the matter is, as of today, we are the single closest, we have the next 3 closest fire stations or fire companies to the airport. They haven't reached out to us to see would we be willing to.
But they don't have a contract yet. They have
Exactly.
So.
But they could have, you know, that may add costs to them that they aren't aware of. I don't know. I don't know how they do business on that front. They claim that they are able to get mutual aid agreements in place. I suspect that they will have some good proposal for us to look at. So until I see that, I can't speak to that.
And then what about automatic aid? Because I understand that's different.
Automatic, the difference is essentially mutual aid is something that we request. So if we have a large incident here, we get automatic aid because we have an agreement with the city of Seaside that every time they get a structure fire, we'll send them 2 engines. And every time we have an incident here at the airport, and there's certain other types of incidents, they automatically, so when we get dispatched, they're getting dispatched. It's all happening all at once. That's automatic aid. It's pre-set up, it's predetermined who goes to what incidents. If the incident out here is even larger and I need more resources, I pick up the radio, call Monterey County Communications on the radio and tell them I need another 3 engines. The mutual aid agreement we have with the Cypress Fire District, with the Monterey County Regional Fire, and with other local fire agencies, they will provide those resources.
Okay, I want to make sure I understood that. I think that's the end of mine. I just, you know, I hope it works out, that is.
Just to kind of clarify a little bit about the history of where we were, the original contract was for $1.65 million back in 2014, when we started. And then, and that was basically a price that was driven by what the airport needed, and actually roughly what your current, at that time, current fire department, your own fire department was costing you. And then the contract had, like, it locked it in for a certain number of years at the same price, and then it escalated based on the CPI. And then subsequently, when Mr. LaPierre came on as the executive director, we sat down and he said, you know, let's look at the balance of the benefit And so we did, and we analyzed the number of calls off-site versus the number of calls on property, and let's share the cost of the engine, not the ARF, but the cost of the engine based on that balance. And so that's what drove it. And then so we were willing, and always are willing, to sit down at the table and say, is there something we can do different? Is there something we can do better to benefit everybody? And that basically was the outcome of it. And the shifting of that cost was gradually down. The price you're paying today is based on the 2018 cost of doing business, because that's when we worked out all the prices. And we agreed to gradually go down to that price. So you're paying $2018 costs today for the services that you're getting, because it was based on the numbers back then. There wasn't any cost escalator. We've, of course, experienced cost increases. Lately, everybody's seen horrible cost increases, so the new price also reflects those cost increases that you've been immune to, really, for the last 10 years.
So as you've negotiated the other cities that you provide services for, have they also seen such a high increase? Have they seen like over a 100% increase in the last 3 or 4 years?
Well, but it's important to recognize that it's a different situation. Like in the city of Pacific Grove, they pay for the cost of the entire operation in the city of Pacific Grove. While there is a regional benefit of having the depth of resources, there isn't a shared cost. So that engine doesn't respond into Monterey, where Monterey says, oh, we'll cover part of the cost of that engine. They have seen, so they wouldn't have seen the same kind of price increase because they started at a higher price. The price that you're looking at is pretty much in line with the price that Pacific Grove and Carmel are paying for having a single engine company staff. That's about what it costs to do that today. Because this unique situation where the engine here can also respond into the city of Monterey, we've been paying part of that price. So it's the cost of operating the station has been about the same as the cost of operating the station in Pacific Grove. But the city of Monterey is picking up part of that tab. And so now we're saying, if you were to pay the entire tab, here's what it would cost you. We're still willing to work out how we balance the cost, and depending on us being able to use that engine, some of that's beyond our control, and we would have to work that out in our negotiations so that the airport does what they need to do to make that happen. Then we'll go back to sharing the cost, and you'll see a huge reduction again, and you'll see probably a more normal cost of living over the years increase in the price of the contract. I hope that makes sense.
I think so. I have to think about it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I'm quite familiar. I've been on this board for forever, along with George Weffel and George Miller. You can't find a job elsewhere, so. And the services that Monterey Fire has provided have been excellent, except for that business with the oil in the fire truck. But in any event, they've been excellent, and as you have described in your proposal, and Mr. Ursula, you described as professional, has been very professional. So I want to compliment you on all that, and that's one of my considerations as one director here. But I am I have a couple of questions, but one of the primary one is related to this differential in cost between what we're paying now and what you proposed, and the negotiation, because we're possibly going to direct staff to do something after we hear both presentations. So is it fair to say, and correct me if this is not fair, that you're charging, you, City of Monterey Fire Department, are charging us $1.5 million in addition to what we're paying right now just to have the fire station on this side of the runway? Is the value of that $1.5 million all tied to your ability to access Highway 68 Bryan Ranch? Is that the essence of the whole thing? And you said something about cost increases on personnel. I thought that's what we were doing on True Up all this time, but apparently we're not. So where are we on all this? And what I've placed as a value of $1.5 million, so that you can use the firehouse on this side of the the runway versus that side of the runway. And that doesn't sound right to me, you know? So, and to distill it, if you negotiated with staff and you found out that you can cross the runway, does that bring the price down $1.5 million? And I know that's a tough question for you to, but yeah, that's why you get paid the big money, you know, so.
And I don't get paid $1.5 million, so it would be nice, but, so yes, first of all, the answer to your question essentially is yes. It's because we know the value of the station to the city of Monterey and its ability to respond. We can look at the proportion of calls that we've responded to. That's where that $1.5 million difference basically rests. And certainly, I believe that it could be something comparable on the other side of the field. I can't say that with certainty without looking at.
I know, you don't have all that authority to do all that. But,
Exactly.
But you've looked at the numbers, and I'm not challenging it, I'm sorry if I'm stepping on you, but we've got a limited amount of time. But you've looked at the numbers an awful lot regarding, particularly regarding the cost increases for personnel and all that. Is it fair to say that we can bring the cost down if you could access the other side of the runway feasibly? That the negotiations could yield a price that we all can feel comfortable with, that approximates something where we're paying right now. And I'm not holding you to that. I'm asking for your opinion.
So I'm 100% confident that we can get to a price that we all feel comfortable is the right price.
Well,
Absolutely.
we have to feel comfortable too, not just
No,
you.
we all, and I'm including you in that. Absolutely. I'm not gonna say that it's gonna be comparable to what you're paying today, because like I said, you're paying $2018. Inflation will be a factor in that, but.
Why weren't we, this may be a little off topic, but why weren't we doing in the true-up? Weren't we doing true-up this whole time?
No.
The current contract calls for a true-up to actually occur now. The first true-up is this
Oh,
for this
okay.
year.
So,
The contract that we negotiated in 18 was we provided what amounted to a parachute that got us all into the proper pricing scenario. Understanding that the previous contract had gotten expensive, and we looked at a different model that would get us to a more competitive price and still compensate the city properly. So there was no true-up for those first
I
5 years.
guess, okay, thank you. And Chief, you also had in the Exhibit B, you had an item that for overtime and out of class for $300,000, okay? Are we paying for that now? Are we paying overtime? Are we paying for out of class right now? Or is this an add-on because we're doing a new contract?
You are paying for it now. I always tell people, you have a fire department, you're gonna have overtime charges because we have to keep the seats filled. So if I hire 4 people to come to work here at the airport fire station today, and then one of them calls out sick, I can't operate with 3 people because our agreement, our contract calls for 4, so I have to put a 4th seat in there. And we fill that either by hiring extra people or by paying overtime and that piece. And so the $300,000 covers the cost of basically of keeping the seats filled.
Okay,
So
so
that's-
we're paying for overtime right
It's-
now.
it's included
in our, whatever the figure is, 1.5, 6, 7,
Yes.
something like that.
Yes, it's included.
Okay, and on mutual aid reimbursements, I don't know whether there have been, but are you returning those to the airport right now?
The mutual aid reimbursements happen when we send folks out statewide on the strike team assignments. That is an added cost to us. It increases. We basically have a separate overtime fund that we pay folks out of for that, and we reimburse that fund. So it's a direct reimbursement for the actual costs incurred for going out of state. It's not, there's no money that offsets costs for what we do day to day. The city of Monterey is still paying overtime to keep our fire stations filled as well, just like the airport. We're still paying, the same level of overtime as what's included in the airport's contract. But when we send somebody out of county, that increases our cost. That's a new cost, and the reimbursement just basically neutralizes that new cost.
Okay.
So there's no benefit for anybody.
Okay, and
that
auto
there's
aid is not a reimbursable item, is that correct? Okay. And excuse me, I'm kind of looking at my notes here. Will you be doing maintenance of equipment under this new contract? If you award the contract, will you be doing maintenance of the equipment?
The RFP did not call for that. The RFP stated that the airport would be handling that, but we have actually, with the city of Carmel and the city of Pacific Grove, we have a separate agreement between our fleet management services and the cities to provide maintenance on their vehicles. The airport is welcome to enter into an agreement with the city of Monterey to provide those services, or we can roll it into, as it is in the existing agreement, we can roll it into the agreement. We're open to negotiating that piece of it as well.
Okay. Daily inspections of the vehicle though, and adding oil if needed.
All that is included. Yes,
That's
we
included.
do a daily
Oh, that's
inspection of the
good.
vehicle.
Good to hear.
Absolutely.
And then one final item, that you indicated that there on page 12 that there was something about higher authority decision-making. Let me pull that up so I'm rather specific about what I'm talking about here. Let's see. Front page. Because the highest level of decision maker for the city of Monterey is located here in Monterey, communication between the key decision makers of both agencies is possible. There will be no decisions affecting Monterey Regional Airport Fire Service made that require approval from a higher authority located out of the town. I kind of got where you were going on that out of town thing, but what higher authority, what are you talking about in your proposal here, higher authority? Are you the authority or is?
For most issues relating to fire services, the airport would be dealing directly with me. But if Mr. LaPierre wanted to sit down and have lunch with Mr. Utslar to talk about something, pick up the phone, they could have lunch today. Versus if you go with a national or international corporation, that person, the equivalent of Mr. Utslar, might be somewhere on the East Coast. You can't have lunch today because they're not going to get here in time for lunch. So that was the point, is that there are no other people outside of it that I'm involved in.
And one final question, that is more informative. Most airplane accidents, crashes and all that really don't occur right on the airport here. And take off and all of a sudden you lose both engines and you're going into the bay. Is that a city function to go out and send your rescue boats out? Or is that an airport function? And I'm talking about the existing contract and what would happen if you weren't selected to go forward as the airport provider.
If an airplane comes down inside the city
An
limits,
airplane comes down outside of the airport property.
if an airplane comes down inside the city limits of Monterey, the Monterey Fire Department is certainly
Will
responsible
respond.
to
It's
take
not
care of that.
mutual aid, it's, okay.
Our city is next to an airport, and we understand that that is one of the
Okay, I
many
just wanted
risks that we face.
For our consideration, it's important for us to understand that there aren't that many airplane crashes right on the airport. They crash when they're turning, or they lose engines and all that. Thank you very much for a very professional presentation. I will go back to the board and ask any final questions.
Well, I think you already answered it. Again, thank you for your presentation, Chief. But I was just curious, what is the cost that Carmel and Pacific Grove are paying for their fire coverage?
We just sent them their projections for the next fiscal year, and they're right around 2.9 million. But of course, they're not staffing in our unit, so that reduces the cost a little bit.
Are they providing the fire trucks, or are you providing the fire trucks?
They provide the fire station and the fire apparatus.
Okay.
So I'm curious, why would the cost of staffing our be more if I assume we're talking about three-person stations at all three cities?
That's correct.
Well, we're not a city, but we're talking about the same number of personnel, aren't we?
We are. There's an increased cost in our service because we have to roll in the cost of the training for them, for those personnel, which is not an insignificant amount to send them out to DFW and go through the school, as well as in order to be able to operate the two vehicles out of the station here, we have to have two drivers, and the driver is a little bit more expensive than the firefighter position that the other cities pay for. So that's the, pretty much the delta there.
That's why we have two engineers here at the,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Well, if the board has done any further questions, I'll open it up to the public and to, I take that back. After the second presentation, we'll open it up to the public. And I want to thank you for your whole, everybody. I don't know when you came to lynch us or what, but you know, a lot of people here. And everybody's professional. We thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Presentation.
Clearly, this is an important item of business in front of
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to just take time before we go on to the consent, right? And I think we have,
Yeah, but remember the motion to bring her in did not pass. So she can listen, but she can't participate.
So we should probably meet.
I have.
Good.
what did you do?
We had a text message. I let Lucy know
You told me what you decided.
I told her she could listen, but she can't participate.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I asked that she
Okay, we'll reconvene at 11:15. Okay, we're about to reconvene to hear our second presentation, and as I indicated at the beginning of the meeting, and
Recording in progress.
before we heard the City of Monterey's presentation, as a matter of courtesy, we would ask that the other proposer of the Pro-Tec representatives from the City of Monterey leave the room as a matter of courtesy for the competitive nature of this proposal. So, is there anybody that has a question about that? Okay. Having said all this, you're up, and please introduce yourself to the members of the board. I think we've met you before, possibly, but we have short memories. You guys do.
Mr. Chairman, is it on? Yes, that's on. Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
Is it on?
director, staff. My name is Dan Deal, and I'm the regional fire chief for Pro-Tec Fire Services. And I'm based in Oklahoma City, so I'm not at the headquarters in Appleton, Wisconsin. So, and I'm the regional fire chief for all the western United States airports that we contract.
Could you repeat where you're located right now?
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma.
Pro-Tec Fire Services is the premier provider for ARF services in the United States, North America. We're the largest provider of contract fire services in the nation. We're financially stable. We have a low overhead. We have a small corporate staff in Appleton, Wisconsin. We manage 25 airports right now, as well as several Boeing contracts and military contracts and general aviation contracts. We have been in business since 1974. Most of those contracts, we're still there. We're still in Green Bay. Started nearly 50 years ago. Most of our contracts are over 20 years. We have airports indexes A, B, and C. Our staffing levels range anywhere from 6 to 35. Pro-Tec's primary mission, again, as I mentioned, is ARF firefighting. And one of the things that I can say since I've been there 12 years with Pro-Tec, we've never failed FAA inspection. We've had excellent service. We teach at the FAA Academy in Oklahoma City. We train all the flight attendants. We do all the evacuations for the military and flight attendants in the United States at Monterey in Oklahoma City. We are a certified fueling inspection company. One of the things about our company that nobody else does is we're a value-added service. We do anything on this airport as long as it's safe and it's legal. And that includes fueling, that includes runway inspections, that includes morning, evening, perimeter fence, that includes wildlife, it includes op services. And the reason for that is that airports are not busy, okay, for firefighting. They need other things, those firefighters need things to do inside the fire station. For me as a supervisor managing all these airports, I want them out of that station out there doing these things. I don't want them sitting over there in that fire station coming up with ways that, you know, I need to do something different, okay? I want them out there becoming part of the airport. I want them over here at the terminal. I want them as putting on barbecues. I want them becoming a part of the family of the airport. I don't want them sitting in the fire station. After they've checked their trucks out, operationally done their checks, I want them out doing what they're supposed to do, whether it's building inspections, fueling inspections that they have to do quarterly, whether it's training for FAA 139. We want them busy, okay? It's just the nature of the beast. And that's one thing that we do that nobody else does. We provide those services and train our personnel at each airport. Most of those services we already know how to do when we get here, but every airport's a little different on how that operates. We're a value-driven organization. We're very strict related to our core values, okay? And that's safety, service, efficiency, and excellence. And if you'll see that our safety mod, E-mod for our workers' comp is 0.57. Okay, it's unheard of in the fire industry to have a safety mod at that, okay? Everybody goes home, we're safe, we talk about it till I'm blue in the face, till the chief's blue in the face. Firefighters know that we're gonna come in and talk to them about safety. Safety costs you money, costs me money, okay? And so it's very important that we talk about safety. It's not only safety to our people, but our fire trucks, the building, the fencing, the gates, the terminal, everywhere, safety. We strongly believe in customer service focus, okay? One of the things you'll hear if you call all over airports and ask the airport director is those guys will do anything, okay? And I'll give you an example of that, okay? Janitors didn't show up in Oklahoma City. 36 gates at Christmas Eve and Christmas, okay? So I didn't even have to ask, but the firefighters were over there picking up cups, running the vacuums, picking up garbage. Okay, they did that 3 times a day for 2 days, okay, Christmas Eve and Christmas. Okay, the whole time we were in index, we even had guys come in off duty to volunteer to help. Okay, those are the type of value services that we provide at our airports because we're part of that family. Okay, we all go to the same barbecues, we go to people's birthday parties, we host all kinds of events in the fire station. Next week in Oklahoma City, they're having a barbecue and a competition for all the employees. Okay, so that's just someplace where you've been for 30 years. You get to know all those people. You get to know the directors, all the board members, all the staff, and that's really what we are as a company. I think as well that one of the things that I want to talk about is if we're successful in this, I know mutual aid has been talked about quite a bit. We consider consider ourselves experts in this field because we have to be. Okay, I go to lots of different jurisdictions. I go to a lot confrontational jurisdictions. We have been successful in being able to go into those places and establish and be part of that mutual aid plan. How we do that is fire service is full of egos. Okay, you got to lose your ego at the door. Okay, when I go in to talk to a fire chief, I don't look like this. Okay, I'm wearing my civilian clothes. You know, I'm trying to work with the jurisdiction. That a lot of people are very defensive when when you talk about somebody that's worked in a metro fire department most of their lives, has a lot more experience, and I'm coming in to talk about a mutual aid agreement, and none of that is mentioned. We have to build relationships between me and the chief, or the chief and I, and whoever we meet with. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 meetings to do that. Maybe it's an off-site meeting. And all of our jurisdictions, we have mutual aid agreements. And you can call those fire chiefs and talk to them about those agreements and say, what do you think of Dan Deal? What do you think of Pro-Tec? And they'll say, those guys are honest, they're professional, and they don't have an agenda. Okay? And they work with us. We train with them. They're firefighters just like we are. Okay? So I think that's important. And I think one of that is, I want to kind of turn over to Chief Edwards. Chief Edwards, if we're successful, will be our fire chief at this location as well. And I want him to talk about his experience in California, because he was stationed here as a chief and has worked in the mutual aid system here in California. And let him talk about a little bit about that. Chief.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sean Edwards, and I'm currently the fire chief for the City of Idaho Falls Regional Airport in Idaho Falls. So, as Chief Deal mentioned, I spent just under 30 years working for the Department of Defense, and I recently retired. But part of that time, I served as the fire chief for DLA San Joaquin in San Joaquin, California. And we operated in a very similar mutual aid system as Monterey County. We have a proprietary ambulance transport company, AMR, and we successfully integrated in that system. Just as if we're the successful bidder, we would do the same here, where at least we would make every attempt to. So that's kind of my experience. What I would bring to the table is I do have some localized experience. So I'll turn it back over to Chief Dill.
I think with that, we're ready for questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I will start with Director Pett.
Sure.
Any questions?
Thanks, Chair. Chief, thanks for your presentation. To both of you, thanks for coming out. Obviously, let me just preface this. This is a potentially enormous change for us, right? We have a long-standing, strong relationship with Monterey Fire, and so just considering this change is not trivial. The question I have for you relates to your mutual aid agreement, potential mutual aid agreement. So we've looked at, we've talked about it today. There's a fairly drastic cost differential. There's services you provide in your proposal meet the RFP standard. They're terrific, but there's a vast difference in costs. We've asked the other party questions about their costs and how that might be impacted by certain aspects. My question for you relating to cost is, how might a mutual aid agreement that you would negotiate, and I think it's by necessity you would need to negotiate it, potentially impact the price that you've submitted in your proposal?
There is no price difference in
Okay,
That's part of our services
okay,
that we provide.
all right. Thanks.
Chair, that's all I've got for now.
Good morning, thank you.
Yes.
Back to mutual aid a second. As you go into areas that may not have neighborhoods that are receptive to you entering, how hard is it to negotiate mutual aid?
You know, I would say that it's, some places it's easy, other places it takes a little bit of time. If we're successful here, we'll probably start right away. We have, you know, a plan to try to approach the county related to the mutual aid program and begin doing that right away. We've never had anybody reject that. You know, by the time that we started the contract, we had those mutual aid agreements in place. Again, I think it comes down to relationships. About me and the chief sitting down and talking about those things. We've never had anybody not respond. We've had, if anything, on my way here, I saw one of our engines out on the freeway handling a call for Oklahoma City Fire. So they must have been busy, so they called us and we sent our engine out on to a vehicle accident out on the freeway. It's some places it takes a little bit longer. I think training, quarterly training, if you'll see in some of our response plans, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, very large departments, you know, 1,000+ members. It takes a little bit of time to do that, but we train quarterly. We bring in different companies and train. The guys get along great. If anything, it's at an administrative level. If at the troops on the ground, we really don't find very many issues whatsoever.
Maybe I'm naive, but it seems like it is all about the safety of the entire region, and so it seems to me rather a no-brainer, but then egos are always involved, unfortunately. How easy has it been for you to recruit personnel within a 1 hour response time when you come into an area?
Pretty easy. Probably I'd say the only place in the country that we have a difficult time recruiting is at Mojave Air and Spaceport, because it's in the middle of nowhere, and people, you know, like to live someplace close to where they work. So that's about the only place that I'm aware of in the nation that we have trouble recruiting. So we recruit. If we're successful, we'll begin already. We already have had a lot of firefighters in the region here contact us about jobs here. So, you know, we told them we can't, you know, we're not going to have them fill out an application yet, but we've had several people already contact us just because, you know, people know me and Chief Edwards, and we're all over the country, and we hire a lot of military people, Marines and Air Force and Army people that are retiring and we're a member of the, you know, the transition team that, you know, brings military people into civilian workplaces, and we hire a lot of those people. So.
How do you keep your workers' comp so low, your injuries?
A lot of, they'll say a lot of barking from Chief Deal, but we're on it all the time. It really is a culture. I mean, I've worked in departments that, I mean, every day we were taking out red doors and backing into something, and it takes a while. It takes a long time to change that culture, and you have to work on it. You really have to believe in it. You have to really get the guys in the stations to believe in it. You have to get people in Mobile, Alabama, Calgary, Alberta, and Trenton, New Jersey, and Medford, Oregon, to believe in safety. And that you got to understand, if you're talking about pay increases for them, hey, every time you guys back that truck into the station, it costs us $50,000. And by the way, that was probably a 3 or 4% increase in your pay for next year. You know, what do you think about that? And they say, oh, yeah, that's right. So, you know, we have been very, very, very fortunate with our safety record. But believe me, we spend a lot of time talking about it. We start every day of our shifts with a safety brief, okay? Might think it's funny, but we also do stretching every day because some of our people are older, and the more stretching they can do every time they get into a truck or get out of a truck, they have a potential to twist an ankle or twist a knee or whatever. So we start each day about a safety briefing, whether it's the weather, whether it's the high winds, hold on to the doors so the doors don't, you know, flop around and, you know, break the hinges off the door of the engine. It's something every day. And, but fortunately, knock on wood, that we continue to be that way.
And then you talked about the FAA inspections, that you've had a really good record. And then you actually do training for other...
Yeah, right. All the inspectors are trained at the academy in Oklahoma City. So once they have a training academy, and so before they go out into the field to learn their, you know, start doing their inspections, they come to Will Rogers, and we put on the training course on, you know, what to look for in your training records, when to be suspicious when they're pulling your leg. We show them how the trucks operate. We show them all the new foam testing equipment that's available on the market so you don't put foam on the ground. We show them how those work, how to read foam graphs, how to make sure that they're, you know, doing blow down tests on their dry chem on their trucks. We teach them everything about their fire station. And, of course, we have a first class facility in Oklahoma City because of that. And we have a lot of staff associated with that. But Oklahoma City airports believe strongly enough in it that they want us to do that. And we're at Mike Monroney a lot. We respond to Mike Monroney about 3 times every day. They have about 12,000 people there that work there every day. So Oklahoma City is a very populated area, probably without passengers, about 45,000 people during the day. It's the only federal prison on city property in the United States. But there's a lot of contractors and aircraft maintenance people that work there. 14,000 acres, so we do a lot of wildland firefighting as well. We have vehicles specifically designed for that. Of course, an ARF vehicle is one of the greatest wildland firefighting vehicle made, and of course all the jurisdictions want to call you as soon as they have a wildland issue. So, but we do that every day.
Okay. I have one more question. There was a considerable difference financially between the two proposals. Is there anything that you feel like you left on the table that you should have put in there that would make them any closer?
No, absolutely. I think of anything, you know, there's an insurance issue. I think that we've already talked to the director about that. We've never had to meet that certain errors and emissions level that was in the RFP, but you know, without that, you know, we've got another $100,000 off our contract. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Would you repeat that $100,000 thing that you were talking about?
Yeah, I already talked to the director about that. So
do Did you reduce the price of your proposal?
Not yet.
500,000?
No.
Oh, okay, all right. I just want to make sure I understood.
Yeah, Director, in the question period, the question was raised by Pro-Tec about the insurance provision in the RFP. We responded to them that is something that we could have conversations about if they were the selected provider.
As to who would pay?
No, it's a specific kind of insurance, errors and omissions.
I'm sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to clarify what I thought I heard you saying. I got these earplugs in, but so, Carl.
I'm up.
You're up.
Thank you for your presentation. I do have a few questions. First one is for Chief Edwards. You will be the fire chief here?
Yes, sir.
Does that mean you're going to live in this area, or will you commute?
I'll find an area, within, 30 to 40 minutes probably.
Okay. And then this will be your only station of overseeing? You won't be overseeing other ones?
No, sir, I would be solely responsible for Monterey.
Okay. Thank you. So you provide ARF services for other airports in California. My understanding is, how many, 2 or 3?
2, yeah. Currently, Mojave Air and Spaceport and Carlsbad.
I saw you just turned in a proposal with mutual aid, talking about other places getting mutual aid. Your other 2 airports, do they participate in, other 2 airports in California, do they participate in mutual aid agreements?
Yes.
My background is in police, law enforcement, not fire service, but I have a son who's a firefighter or an engineer now. He had to go to, I as a police officer had to go to a state academy, and no one in California can be a police officer without going to a similar academy. I understand rules like that sort of exist for the fire service
Correct.
here in Monterey, so this is a state standard, not a federal one, correct?
Right.
And you would hire people that would meet those state standards?
Yeah. All of our people meet IFSAC, Pro Board or DOD requirements, which exceed those requirements. So they're all a minimum of IFSAC, Pro Board, DOD, Firefighter 1 and 2 EMTs.
Okay. And it
That's
would
a
be,
basic function for all of our sites anywhere in North America.
but there is a state certification process, and they would,
Yeah.
the firefighters you would hire would meet that certification?
Yes.
And that would be a big part of any mutual aid agreement, is that the people you hire are adequately trained to respond.
Correct.
3-person station, are you going to be able to respond off airport that much, or how would that work?
Well, there's 2 ARF trucks, so if the city had a flammable combustible overturned tanker or something, they needed
Yeah.
mil-spec foam, which, again, mil-spec foam is the only place in this region that you'll find it. Most fire departments don't buy it because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
But the Navy uses it, the aircraft industry uses it because it has great knockdown capabilities, plus it actually has a foaming capability, so you can provide a vapor over the fuel that's on the ground. So I would expect that any jurisdiction here that would have one would call us, and we would transfer a firefighter over to that vehicle and we would respond.
But you would still be able to offer services here?
Yeah, you'd always stay in index.
And index is 2 firefighters?
Is one firefighter with the ARF vehicle. That's correct.
Okay, sounds good. I know I had other questions. What's your typical employee that you go to hire? I mean, where are you drawing these people from? I would assume some may be retired firefighters in the retirement system that couldn't work for PERS. PERS is our state retirement system.
Yeah, it varies. We have a lot of younger guys who get out of the military. We have a lot of firefighters who are interested in aircraft firefighting. And, you know, it really just depends. I would say maybe 50% of them are military or have military experience where they have a lot of the certifications from the military. So, but they're all very trained, very certified, all EMTs. A lot of them have, you know, a lot more certifications than just firefighter 1 and 2 and EMT. If they're military, they have, you know, a gamut of qualifications from instructor, inspector, officer 1, 2, 3, and 4. And a lot of states don't even offer that. I don't know, does California offer a?
I'm not 100% certain. The highest level.
A lot of states don't offer, you know, beyond a firefighter or fire officer 2, so.
What is the average tenure for a Pro-Tec firefighter? How long do they typically stay with you?
Well, I would say that, you know, we have employees that have been there 40 years. And in Oklahoma City, because we hire such qualified people, that the chief in Oklahoma City a lot of times tries to steal 3 or 4 of our guys every academy. So the chief, Kelly, in Oklahoma City as well, was a Pro-Tec employee. He was a firefighter at Will Rogers when he first started. And he went to Oklahoma City and went through the ranks, and now he's the fire chief in Oklahoma City. So he calls over and he thinks it's funny that, you know, he's going to hire some of our guys, but he knows that our guys are very well trained and they have good qualifications. So that's the only reason that a lot of times that we lose people, because they go to Oklahoma City or to Tulsa.
The pay you listed, that's your top step, right? You would hire them at lower steps than that?
No, that's the pay that we hire them at. And
okay. Does it have salary ranges, or they just have
no,
one straight fee?
that's what they get paid when they get here.
That's kind of unique.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming down and for your proposal.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay. I have a few questions for the chief.
Okay.
Do I call you chief?
Chief, you can call me anything you want.
Well, no, when I first saw you
A lot of
coming
people-
here, I thought you were one of my Navy colleagues, you know, that came to beat me up. I'm an Air Force person. Thank you for your presentation, and this is a big deal for us. Any change like this, big deal. So, and we may ask questions that are a little naive, but you were listed a whole lot of these certifications, and it's not clear that all of those certifications are resident right here, right now, among our current provider. Are all of those certifications required by the FAA?
No.
Or, I mean, where does all the, you rattled off a whole bunch of them. Where did all that come from?
Well, what happens in our organization is we truly believe in educating our people and providing certifications, because it drives who we are and our professionalism, okay? So we have several master instructors through Oklahoma State University. That's who develops the curriculum for firefighting and our firefighting, and we have people who sit on those committees. So in our organization, we have several of those master fighters and trainers who train our people. We put on these IFSAC courses at our facility in Oklahoma City. We also work with Texas A&M at TEACS. We do also in Lackland at our Boeing facility. We teach those courses as well. So a lot of those people come in with the minimal qualifications, and we teach those people because we have, in our organization, we have people who are certified and accredited to the highest level in the fire services. You know, you don't get to a fire officer 4 just being a firefighter 1 and 2. You have to have experience, and you have to go through the ranks, and you just don't get it overnight. And so it takes time to do that. And but we invest that time, and we put on those
What
classes.
would be, let me step on you because we have limited amount of time on this subject. So what is going to be your criteria for staffing with your engineers or firefighters here? What is your criteria, minimum criteria
Well,
for certification?
yeah, right off the bat, there'll be, the minimum will be a firefighter 1 and 2, EMT, but we'll look for ARF, driver operator, or an IFSAC ARF as well. Most of the military people that we look at, some of the officers that we've already looked at are fire officer 4. So those would be our captains. I don't think we'll have any problem exceeding the minimum qualifications for our personnel.
Okay, I'm not a fire guy, you know, so.
There's a lot of interest.
Those people that you would hire will all meet what, FAA minimum criteria or the insurance company's criteria?
No.
Whoever it is, you know.
It would be Pro-Tech's minimum qualifications,
Do
yeah.
we have for staff? Do we
Yeah.
have, does the FAA have minimum
Yeah.
criteria?
They do in their advisory circular. They have a training
Do
curriculum.
we meet the FAA
Oh, yeah.
circular?
Yeah, we exceed.
Okay, sorry, I stepped on you, sorry, it's kind of important to us. Okay.
No, it is.
And they're gonna, when they show up for duty, that's, their certification is present at that time. It's not something they're gonna work towards, okay? All right. You mentioned that ARP is your primary mission. Okay.
That's correct.
What are your other missions? What are your, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but, you know, to the extent that there are other things that we might have to pay for, or other things that you do, that's important for us to know.
There is no other cost for anything else that we would do here. Okay, so you understand a lot of our airports, we do structural protection, we do hazmat, we do ARF, we do all the inspection services. And a lot of our airports have engines, and we respond to structural fires as well as ARF incidents. And we have mutual aid for those calls as well with surrounding jurisdictions. Not all of our airports have structural capability because they don't have an engine, but they do inspections, they do ARF, they do fueling inspections, they do runway inspections, they do.
Okay, will you inspect our hangars here? Will you
Yes.
inspect our fuel provider? Will you inspect those?
Yes.
And that's included in the price?
That's correct.
Sorry, I'm trying to move this along because we have a limited amount of time. I noticed on your proposal that you had us paying for a chief's vehicle and also startup costs. And are we paying for overtime too?
No.
Okay. Now, on the chief's vehicle, and why are we paying for that? Why are we
You're
paying
not.
that?
Yeah,
Oh, did I misunderstand?
yeah, no,
We are not.
We're not paying for them.
no, we are. Pro-Tech's- Pro-
Chief's vehicle, $14,700.
yeah. We're not paying, you're
Can
not.
I get
paying.
one of those?
Yeah.
Well, why am I seeing that? Just Clara, help me understand that.
I'm not sure what you're looking at, Director.
I'm looking at the cost to provide our services from Pro-Tec.
Those might be some of our internal startup costs, but those are not costs to the airport. Those are Pro-Tech's costs. Because we have startup fees because we'll start about 30 days before the contract, so we'll be here about September 1st to start our training. And so a lot of those startup costs belong to, or all of those startup costs belong to Pro-Tec. And we do that at every site that we do.
I wish I understood better. Do you have a different document than I have?
I did not bring, I have what they provided us. That's
Okay,
the full
and this,
rules of what I have right now.
this is important because we're going to be having to discuss this here. And it says pricing breakdown. Are you familiar with that
Yes.
Good thing. And the wages and salaries and salary benefits and all the normal things, but it had a chief's vehicle, a startup cost, and it seemed to all come to a total of $1.7 million.
Yeah.
So where am I misreading this thing, or any of us?
Yeah, those costs are not, startup costs and the vehicle are not a part of that 1.7.
It's not? Okay.
No.
So there is no breakdown for the 1.7 million. There is, because this is the pricing breakdown. There's no other, you didn't provide a breakdown for those costs.
There is a breakdown in that document, Director.
Okay.
I think it's beyond that, it's a full page where they list all of the staffing costs and everything. I'm not sure which one.
Okay.
Give me a moment to look at it.
Yeah.
He's looking at page 5.
I don't have it with me, so. Okay. All right. Let me back to my little.
Sorry, we have a little confusing. I had a couple of other questions.
Sure.
And that was, is it your intention to have all of your staff, I mean, engineers and chiefs and all that, live within, say?
1 hour.
1 hour? You think that's feasible?
Yes, very much.
Seeing our housing prices here. So, okay. And then, the vehicles need daily inspections, and major maintenance. I kind of get it, that we're responsible for major maintenance. You've got a flat tire up there. How are you gonna function? Are you gonna repair
No.
the flat tire? Are you gonna call up him and say, hey, get somebody over here to repair this tire?
Yeah, we're gonna get a tire manufacturer to come over, a local one, to come and change that tire and repair it.
Okay, so you're not doing any vehicle maintenance?
No.
Will you be doing any maintenance on the fire station? You know, if you run into you run into the door, like you identified there?
We won't be doing it, but we will hire that to be done.
Okay, are you gonna charge us for it?
No,
Okay.
it's in our maintenance costs, we pay for those.
Okay, all right. Not trying to put you on the spot.
No,
here, just
no,
trying to
those are
do
good
the,
questions.
Yeah, how the, let's see, you mentioned, I think, no, I'm not certain about anything anymore, periodic performance audits. What is that? What is a periodic performance audit? And
We normally come in, myself, I have a team of people who go through FA inspections all over the United States. And I've been in this long enough to know that every district is a little different. And the inspectors, we have a list of all the inspectors and what they like, they don't like, and everything. So we'll come in about a month ahead of time and go through all the records to make sure that
it's kind of a pre-audit.
that Chief Edwards has got all of his
I get it.
I's dotted and T's
I used
crossed.
to do that.
He's got a fast, but on
Yeah, okay, but you audit, performance audit is geared towards, do we have paperwork and do we have stuff necessary to pass an FA inspection?
Right.
Okay.
So and we use electronic software. I monitor that from wherever I'm at. I can pull it up. It's all web-based, so I can see what their daily log is. I can see any responses. I can see if they're checking their trucks. I can see all their training that they're doing and what they trained on for the day. I can see any of my airports at any time.
Okay. Will you be doing fire marshal investigations? And I don't know whether you use that term, but we have to assure that things are tidy around here so that they're not about to catch fire. And hangar inspections are one of them, structures, and then the new terminal, the old terminal, all those things. Somebody has to go and look to see if we have proper fire extinguishers, whatever it is,
We'll be
safety
doing those
thing.
inspections.
You'll be doing that, and is that included in the pricing that you have?
Yes.
And reports provided to the executive director, and then he forwards them on to the board of directors, so we know what's going on, what the level of service is you're providing, and how much of it, you're providing. And do you anticipate doing that? Because I didn't see it mentioned anywhere in your proposal.
We do that at several of our airports. In our web-based system, every day we have a daily roster, so it'll show who's on duty, who's on what vehicles, and we'll, a lot of times you just pretty much send it to the director, so he sees that everybody's on duty that's supposed to be there.
Okay, I'm going to ask a rather sensitive question here, and I'm sure I won't phrase it correctly, but I think the mutual aid function is not a mandatory thing for our surrounding jurisdictions here. You do not have a collective bargaining unit in your company.
No, we have several.
Oh, you have collective bargaining?
We have collective bargaining agreements, Teamsters, IAFF, Machinist Union. We have collective bargaining agreement.
Will the fire personnel here be part of a bargaining unit?
That's not up to, that wouldn't be up to me, that would be up to the employees if they decided that that's what they wanted to do. But they won't come in as in a bargaining unit.
Okay, but elsewhere in California, you have bargaining units.
No, not in California.
And do you have them in Idaho?
They are not, no.
Where do you have bargaining units?
Oklahoma City, Tulsa, San Antonio, Calgary, Saskatoon.
Okay, good enough. Here's where the sensitive part comes in. You're asking mutual aid from our surrounding jurisdictions here, who all have bargaining units. They're all represented, and we respect that, and I'm sure that you will respect that. But given that you may not be have represented employees here, is this going to be difficult to negotiate mutual aid? And you've had experience where it was difficult elsewhere?
No. The factor that they're union versus non-union has no factor whatsoever. So I've never had that issue, ever. And one thing about the fire service, and I've been around a lot longer than most, so one of the first things I can still remember when I started was that we respond to anybody, okay? Doesn't matter who you are, to any jurisdiction. So when you start determining and standing back and saying, geez, I don't think I want to go over there anymore. Okay, well, that isn't the fire service, okay? None of these guys in here will admit that they're not going to respond to one of the jurisdictions because they're union or non-union.
Well, I'm talking about negotiating a mutual aid agreement.
That wouldn't make any difference. Chief isn't going to say, we're not coming to the airport. Okay, he couldn't last 2 days in his position if he was to say that. Okay, politically, you can't decide who's going to get service and who's not going to get service.
Okay,
Everybody gets service.
thank you. Mike, can you help me with what my misunderstanding about the pricing proposal here?
I wish I could. It is there, you are reading that correctly, but the discussions that we had with Pro-Tec did not include that, so that may be a subtraction from that 1.7.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in terms of your proposal, it's all public information now.
Yeah.
And so your proposal is 1.73. Okay, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And we don't have to buy you a vehicle or buy
No.
him a vehicle?
No.
He's going to bring his own 1972 Datsun. Okay.
As long as they can afford it.
All right, thank you. And do any members of the board have additional questions? No. All right, and I'll open it up to the public now. If we've heard two presentations. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
If you are
you.
finished with your presentation, open up to the public. If the public has any comments on this, the two proposals that we've heard, okay, please, we've got a 3-minute time limit here. You don't have to leave if you don't want to.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Thank you. Please state your name.
Rick Rodewald. I'm here in two facets. Number one, primarily, is I'm a citizen of Delray Oaks, and I live in the condos right on the end of the runway. So adequate fire protection is a very big concern based on what your decisions you're going to make and what's going to be provided here. The other thing I need to tell you, 42 years in the fire service. I retired from Monterey in 2006. So I want to get into the mutual aid part. Mutual aid, like the chief said, it's provide and take. It's not mutual if you're not going to be able to provide need coverage for all risks, not just requesting the ARF for overturn fuel tank. It's being able to do structural firefighting, wildland firefighting, and again, I want you to focus on the term all risks, not just one risk. The other issue I see is the staffing is 2 on an engine company and 1 on an ARF. If you have a structure fire and the engine company goes over, they're not going to be able to make entry for interior firefighters because there's a law that you have to have staffing on the exterior before 2 can go in. And so I don't see how they're going to be able to do that without mutual aid. The other thing I heard, and I want to tell you, it kind of was discussing, is the term eco. Nobody's going to not want to provide the fire service needs for the entire community based on they got our contract, and so we're not going to play anymore. It's really what they're able, the competitor, what they're able to provide in the mutual aid process. If they have nothing to give you, then it's not mutual aid.
Okay.
So again, I know that this is actually starting to look to me like it's trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Any other members of the public wish to speak?
Hey, Chair. Can you somebody close the door?
Yeah, we can close the outside door. Can't leave that door.
Thank you.
The doors you're talking about. Thank you. Please introduce yourself to the board, and you got 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Anthony Melendrez. My wife and I reside here in Monterey on Gordon Avenue. Thank you very much for your service. Appreciate you guys opening this up to the public. And as a concerned resident here in Monterey, I heard both presentations, and I'm quite concerned that you wouldn't be heavily leaning towards our fire department. I think our fire department.
Say that again.
That you guys are not, well, I'm not getting feedback, that you guys are heavily considering re-upping the contract with our fire department.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm getting the feeling as a resident that you guys are leaning towards going with this other company. And you know, it's kind of like you're willing to give up the best and settle for mediocre. You've got a known entity that is providing excellent service, not just to this airport, but to the community of Monterey. And in fact, the entire Monterey Peninsula. And there's no complaints by other entities here. And so I don't quite understand when they're meeting above and beyond the minimum qualifications with staffing, with training, with all the fire prevention inspections, with EMS. I'm retired fire, 34 years. I worked here on the Monterey Peninsula for 5 years, and I retired from the city of San Jose, and I worked for my last 3 years at the airport at Mineta. So I was on an arc rig, I was a fire captain, and so we also participated, like Monterey does, with the FAA required inspections, with the triennial drills. I worked here as an evaluator, volunteered as an evaluator here in one-year triennial drills. And the fire department, along with the other fire departments, because in a mass casualty, when an aircraft goes down, you got 150, 200 souls on board of an aircraft. It's not going to be 3 people that can take care of that emergency. You know, the FAA only wants the passengers to be able to get out of the aircraft within 3 minutes, right? It's just a matter of them getting out. So you've got the arc rigs helping them to keep everything in check to allow them to escape off the aircraft. But time's up.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
your
So
comments.
please
And,
go with the guys that you know and the guys that are doing the job right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public like to speak? Please introduce yourself. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Josh Hostetter. I'm president of the Salinas Firefighters. I'm a 25-year veteran here in the county, currently assigned to the busiest engine company in the county. I wanted to speak to you guys a little bit about the value of your fire department. These are good jobs. They're union jobs, third-generation union firefighters. And what you guys have coming in right now are scabs. That's why there's 2 airports in the state of California that have privatized fire. It's not a popular thing in the state of California because it jeopardizes good paying union jobs and it jeopardizes the state fire mutual aid system. That's just the bottom line. They're not welcome here. There's not a lot of them. And you guys are getting sold a bill of goods that's going to result in a revolving door. Their employees are going to come here and go, oh boy, I could go over there. I'm going to leave. I've never heard of a fire department where some members are a union and some members aren't union, or they chose to be part of this union. Not a common practice. Your Monterey Fire Department is 100% union shop, as is my fire department. So, just wanted to give you guys some things to think about. This is the Monterey Airport. It should be protected by the Monterey Fire Department. Thank you.
So my name is Andrew Melendrez. My dad just spoke. I'm a lifelong customer of the Monterey Airport. So I used to work, I was actually with Chief Miller, worked with his son at a neighboring agency, and the minimum standard there was 2 people on a fire engine. Unfortunately, that is a low level of service, and I personally made the choice to come work at the city of Monterey about 1.5 years ago to work on a higher level of service fire department. 2 people will not get a job done. Unfortunately, I know that from personal experience on emergency incidents. 3 people or more should be the standard, and is the standard in the fire service. As a customer, it's very concerning that you are considering the minimum or the lowest level of service for emergency response to your customers. So I really hope that you reconsider and go with excellent fire service and EMS service, and not just the minimum or the mediocre because it's saving you money. Ultimately, what is the price that you're willing to pay for your safety, for your customer's safety, for the resident's safety, for your employees' safety? I think that's the biggest question that you need to ask yourselves. And if you're trying to cheat your way out of it, maybe you should start saving money on filling the private jets with regular unleaded gas. That'll save money, right? But you can't do that because these private jets need the top quality fuel. So what I'm saying is, if you want the best for your citizens, if you want the best for your customers and for yourselves, continue the level of service that you've had for the last 10 years. I looked at it, you were talking about costs earlier today, and how it's so much more expensive, and I'm not going to get into politics, but your flight to Denver at 1 o'clock today is $668. So the price for everything is going up. And again, for public safety, I personally am very uncomfortable that you're considering to drop your level of service in regards to the public safety of the Monterey County. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else who choose to speak? Please introduce yourself and welcome.
Good morning to the board, and thank you for your time. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm a firefighter for the city of Monterey and a resident of the Casanova Oklahoma neighborhood just on the other side of the airport. Years ago, the Monterey Peninsula Airport District entrusted the city of Monterey with providing fire protection services to this area. The Monterey Fire Department gained the employees from the Monterey Airport Fire Department with the merger years ago. These employees, who are still with us today, as the chief mentioned, have over 165 years of combined experience. They, along with many of the other firefighters, know this airport inside and out. Things like infrastructure, airport staff, the risks and hazards, policies, procedures, etc. And most importantly, the knowledge and experience they have to keep this airport safe. Having the Monterey Fire Department continue to provide the airport's fire protection services also keeps the airport involved in a well-established mutual aid and automatic aid system for any potential large-scale incidents. By sticking with the city of Monterey and the Monterey Fire Department for your fire protection services, you are getting the most highly trained firefighters during an emergency with the already established knowledge base of the Monterey Airport and how it operates. Monterey Fire Department regularly trains together and with the local surrounding agencies so that when an emergency happens, we all work together efficiently as a team to mitigate any and all emergencies. Pro-Tec does not have these established relationships, and like training and tactics to provide the most efficient response during an emergency. Throughout my career in fire and EMS, I have worked for several agencies in both public and private sectors. I can tell you from personal experience that when it comes to level of care, training, and quality of service, a public fire service is always the right choice. A private, for-profit company will always put profit before services. They have to, or they don't survive as a company. They will put together a presentation or a bid that probably looks very nice on paper, but when it comes down to it, they will cut costs wherever they can. Whether that be in quality of equipment, training, personnel, or management, just to maximize profits. Pro-Tec's own website says, high quality ARF services at the best value price. I asked the board, do you guys want the value brand fire department? Or do you want the tried and true, well-established fire department that is the Monterey Fire Department, that so many other cities in the areas have trusted with the fire service for years? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else from the public who wants to speak? Please introduce yourself.
My name is Anthony Schernstein, and I'm an employee at Monterey Fire, and I'm also a your fire. I've been one of your firemen since 2004. I was an original Monterey Airport fireman. And in that time, I've also been your fire inspector, your prevention officer, your lieutenant. I've been incident commander on 2 of your triannual drills in which we passed. I've been helped with facilitate and planning of the next 3 that have just been in the last 10 years under Chief Panhauser. And I think all those have shown the expertise and the value that Monterey Fire brings and provides. We bring a sense of pride to the community, and we bring a sense of pride to this airport in professionalism in what we bring. We have people that have gone across the spectrum that have gone from no ARF experience to now are fully qualified individuals, gone to Dallas, get vetted. We have people that do your quarterly fuel farms and present those records to the FAA examiner on an annual basis and have always met with exemplary comments. Triannuals have always gone off with fantastic results benefiting this airport. And in my 19 years of being here, I started when we were bringing in Saabs and Brazilias with 30 people on board. And now I see regional jets that have 80, 90, and just to this year, I'm seeing Airbus 319s bringing in capacities of 150. What we're seeing is an increase in potential that happens at this airport. Why do we want to decrease the amount of protection and service that protects those individuals that come to our community, go through the gates of Monterey Airport into our tourist attractions, into our hotel environments, all that? I'm asking the board to really consider what we're looking at for the future of this organization. I've been a proud member. I've never left. I'm still here. I'm still your firefighter, and I'm a part of this organization with pride and professionalism. And I really hope that you make a really sound decision coming forward in the next few weeks. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else from the public want to speak?
Tony's a really good speaker. My name's Jeremy Pratt. Not really good at public speaking, so if I sound like I'm crying, I probably am.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm a resident of Pacific Grove. I've lived in this area pretty much my whole entire life. I worked for Monterey Fire. Just like Andrew, I came from Monterey County Regional Fire. I had the opportunity to work with Director Miller's son. And as an officer at Monterey County Regional Fire, I understood the complexity of the mutual aid system and how that pertains to what we can provide. I just want to read to you from before I get to that. Mutual aid might look very different all over the United States. I've taken national classes, and I understand that mutual aid in Oklahoma might be a little different than mutual aid in California. But for Monterey County specifically, in Section 8, number A, procedures to providing aid in Monterey County, the responding agencies is to provide the resources requested with a minimum of 3 personnel, 1 being an officer and 1 may be in an acting capacity. And I want to explain what that looked like when I worked at Monterey County Regional, where I was on a 2-person engine company. If we were asked to provide mutual aid to any adjoining agencies, we would send our engine with 2 personnel. We would downstaff the second engine to provide an additional 3rd body. They would fall in a utility vehicle. So when it comes to Pro-Tec and the quote and what you guys asked for, as it pertains to mutual and auto aid, I don't know how that's possible with a 2-person engine company and 1-person ARF to meet the requirements and to maintain index. I'm also, just like Andrew, we're new employees in Monterey. We're thankful to be here, but we'd probably also be on the chopping block. So I don't know if that's a thing, but I know that I'm at the bottom of the seniority list in Monterey, and this decision may or may not affect, my ability to live and participate in the community that I've lived in for so many years. So I just want to bring that up and provide you with information regarding the mutual aid.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. And I've been at the bottom of the seniority list too.
Now, sometimes when you're on the bottom, you're on top.
Good afternoon. My name is Ross Pounds. Good afternoon, directors, staff, the Monterey Peninsula Airport District. Like I said, my name is Ross Pounds. I'm the Monterey Firefighters Association Local 3707 president. I represent 78 firefighters employed by the city of Monterey to stand committed to the Monterey Peninsula Airport District. I'd like to begin by saying that we respect the RFP process and the opportunity to exercise fiscal responsibility, but this process creates tension, the tension that's necessary and the tension that's worthwhile. When public safety is potentially influenced or local jobs are affected, this process gets very sensitive. This contract represents jobs within our department, 9 to be exact. The jobs of men and women who live and work locally. Over the last 10 years, the MFFA has dutifully served the airport. 9 of our current employees, as you've heard a couple of times, currently serve this fire department that served your fire department prior to the merger. Their professional experience and institutional knowledge is very difficult to quantify, but you've heard the number a couple of times. Those 9 employees represent 165 years of direct firefighting experience here at this airport. But it's also challenging to quantify commitment. Monterey Peninsula Airport District has distinguished itself as an outstanding contributor to the local community, dedicated to providing a solid platform for its local community. The members of the Monterey Firefighters Association want to support and continue that dedication and see retention of this contract as an opportunity to build on a foundation of collaboration for the future. It doesn't matter how we got to this place, but it matters how we proceed from here. And how we proceed is driven by responsibility to the public and to public safety. As publicly elected members of this board and as publicly employed members of the fire service, we take an oath. We take an oath to protect the Constitution, and we take an oath to protect those we serve. Public safety is more than just a line item on a budget, which highlights the need for further deliberation and discussion for such an important decision. Public safety for us is more than just a financial decision. For us, it's about family. Your decision affects our family. Your employees became part of our family. All of us here in the room, everyone that's standing behind me, we want to continue to be part of your family. If we need to step up our game in the provision of service to the airport so that you see the value for money, let's have that conversation. Let's identify key performance indicators so that we have positive outcomes that we can point to and measure. Now more than ever, we need to find common ground to best serve our community and the community's airport. The opportunity within this fire contract goes beyond fire services. We share your interest to improve not just here at the airport, but for the entire Monterey Peninsula. Let's do that together. This is a shared responsibility and one that comes with a cost. A cost that is difficult to put a number on, but nonetheless, we respect this process, we respect the weight of your decision, and we will endeavor to provide you with the highest level of service possible. The members of the MFFA, Monterey Firefighters Association, we respectfully ask that you maintain our contract for services as a commitment to this community, as we stand committed to you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no more members of the public who wish to speak, I'm going to close public comments at this point, and I will call for, we will then proceed as a body here to discuss and discuss direction to be given to the staff, and we'll take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, can I just do one issue? There are a couple of hands that are raised online.
Oh,
This is being broadcast only. We are not taking public comments because, again, the vote that was taken before to add the item, it would have allowed public, the remote attendance of a board member did not pass. So we're pushing this out as we do. We're broadcasting this as we normally do. We're not taking public comment from members of the public who are remote. We're taking comments from members of the public who are here, or members of the public who wish to submit something by email. We've received several. You got those printed.
I've got it. Yeah, I was going to come to that, but so is this an interpretation of state law here, or is this our choice?
No, so you'll recall that during the pandemic, there were some bills passed that allowed public agencies to operate remotely and to, you didn't have to publicize your address, or you could just participate remotely without getting any notice.
Okay.
That allowed members of the public to, again, make comments from anywhere, as long as they raised their hand and we called on them. The governor's executive order that allowed, I believe it was AB 319, 316, I can't remember. There's so many of these bills I can't remember. But the governor's executive order that allowed AB 319, I think it was, to utilize the remote participation has expired. It expired as of February 28th.
Is there state law that's governing our not taking public comments right now?
Yes, the Brown Act will prohibit you from taking public comment.
That's what I need the answer on. So, and from members of the public, both here and online, we have received written email comments, and we will take that in consideration and during our deliberations here. So, do you see any reason that we can't go forward with our deliberations here as a board to provide guidance to staff? Okay. We will adjourn for until 12:35. I'm calling everybody back into session. Okay, are we returning now? Okay. So I guess our plan here, according to the agenda, is for us to have a discussion and give direction to the staff as to how to proceed. I guess we are not making a choice of a provider at this time, but rather giving direction to the staff as to how we think they ought to proceed. And are there any questions about what our mission here is before I open it up for discussion? Mary Ann,
I do not.
Yeah,
no.
okay, Carl?
No.
Okay, so let me open it up for discussion, but before that, did you get any clarification on why I'm looking at a different cost proposal for one of the providers than what they had, or what you had?
Other than what I just shared with you in session, no. That in our discussions around the cost, I was assured that that cost was not in that proposal, but it clearly is, so that needs to go back to Pro-Tec for some
It
clarification.
needs to run.
It needs to go back to Pro-Tec for some clarification.
Okay.
So,
Are we expecting that a proposer should have a cost breakdown, like when you saw?
And they do have a cost breakdown.
They have a cost
They do
breakdown
have a
here.
cost breakdown. Both-
And so
both
this
proposals.
is reflective of what they intended, even though you don't have a copy of it. is there?
I do have a copy, I just did not bring it into the room with me,
Oh,
Director. I
So is
think I've
this,
given that
this
to
is
someone
what we're
else.
dealing with, because
That's
I
correct.
asked the question, and I apologize to my fellow board members, I just wanted to get this item clear, because
Yep.
it seemed to be rather controversial here. I asked about startup costs, I asked about a vehicle for the fire chief and all that, and I wasn't sure whether that was included in our price. Are we paying for a vehicle for the chief and startup costs?
Okay, let's go this way.
Okay,
Based on that proposal, you would be paying $14,000 for a vehicle for the chief. That
Yeah.
is the proposal that they have shown you. That is the proposal you should consider. I was assured that that price did not include that vehicle, but it does in that proposal, so that is their proposal.
and it includes the startup costs as well. That's one of the listed items here.
That is their proposal,
And
that
the
is what you should
reason
consider.
that I was pursuing this a little bit was, maybe this is valuable to my colleagues here, because this is, the startup costs go on year after year after year, I guess, because that's the way they proposed it, okay? In other words, the cost is escalated in year 2, in year 3, and I wanted to ask the question, are you charging us for startup costs every year? And if you understand what, I'm not saying that very clearly.
No, I think I
It seems to
understand.
be a one-time cost, and buying the chief's vehicle, seems like a one-time cost, and that's unclear to me, so.
Well, my suggestion to you, Director, is that you consider the proposal that is in front of you as the proposal, not anything that they have had represented to me in conversations. That is their proposal, that's what you should consider.
So they're gonna charge us for startup costs every year, in year 1, 2, and 3.
That proposal is I believe it's a 3-year proposal.
Yes.
Those numbers are the numbers you should look at.
Okay. I'll start with you, Mary Ann. Do you have any thoughts you want to express to all else? And the point being is to give guidance to staff.
I have lots of thoughts.
You have lots of thoughts?
Yeah.
What did you say?
It seems to me, in what you are discussing right now, Director Sabo, and with the conversation that the City of Monterey had, that was their startup discussion, and it seems like there might be some movement in the Pro-Tec piece also. It looks to me like it might be time to ask the staff to go back to see what the bottom line is before we take a look at this. Because what I heard were a lot of maybe could be possible, no, that isn't what we said, but I think it is what we said when it's in writing in front of me. So I personally today would like to direct staff to go back to have a conversation. If I were to vote today, I'm going to be clear, this is nothing about the level of service or about the people who provide the service to this airport or to the employees of Monterey, but it is about the proposal that was given to us. For me, it was not a complete proposal. It was too loose and it was too nebulous, and it needed to be tightened up so that we could take a look at it. There's almost a $2 million a year difference. That's a huge difference to a public agency that is trying to be to serve our community the best that we could possibly serve it. Anybody who looks at the numbers would go, wow, why are you even asking the question? But I think there were things that were brought up today. I would like to give everybody one last shot at it and to see what they can come up with. If the leaders of the city are saying this was just kind of what we were throwing out there and we think we could do better, I guess we'll see what can be better. But we're all in the hands of what the proposal is. We are financial stewards of the airport's money, and we also have we get money from FAA. We cannot just randomly decide that we're going to pay. This isn't. This is the only way I know how to say it. I'm sure it'll come back and bite me. But we can't overpay for something just because you're our neighbors, you're our friends, because we like you. We have to do what we are elected to do, and that is to serve the entire region for this airport. It is the Monterey Regional Airport, and our name is the Monterey Peninsula Airport District. It's not the Monterey Airport. If that were the case, we would be a division of the city of Monterey. We are not that. And we operate solely as our own enterprise. We cover our own expenses. We do not ask for dollars from people. We don't take money from the other cities. We don't do anything. We cover our costs. You have to understand our position here. That's who we are. Personally, my whole core thing is about people, and it's about money. It's always about money, whether we have it or we don't. And we have big plans for this airport to serve our region better, and it's really important that we steward our funds appropriately. So for me, I heard a fire chief's vehicle or startup costs. I heard, well, maybe there's more value in this or that. I would just like for our airport director to sit down with whoever is making the decisions, and for them to be one more shot at it. But I'm clear, if the dollars are the dollars as presented today, I would have to go with Pro-Tec, because I just cannot justify that we would spend $2 million a year for basically the same amount of people on an annual basis. So that's where I'm at. So that's it.
Thank you. Carl, some thoughts?
Well, I do. First, I really want to thank everybody that came and spoke to us today. Typically at our meetings, if we get 4 or 5 people here, we take notice. So this was impressive, and I do appreciate you coming and your input. That's important to us that we know these things. I too believe we need to get the proposals firmed up. It sounds like Pro-Tec's proposal may come down $14,000. I'm not sure I would want to drive in a $14,000 car, quite personally.
Sure.
But Monterey's proposal, is I don't think it's firmed up enough, and I think we need to just figure out. And it's not your numbers per se. It's you assessing the value of this new fire station, which I get. I think there's room for movement there. If there's any culprit in all of this, I think we just stop talking. We stopped talking with Monterey, and Monterey stopped talking with us. And we really got to fix that. I mean, we really do, because it leads to problems like this. So I do have concerns. Maybe, Mr. Lapierre, you can, because we have deadlines here. We've got to have a contract up and running. How much wiggle room and time do you have to work something out here? Or to get, and it's trying to determine their ability to utilize that station. You know, I think putting a structure apparatus on the south side may have some value to it or something, I don't know. There's gonna have to take some, we're gonna have to take some creativity here, but how long, but it sounds like something that's gonna take a bit of time to work that out. What are your time restraints?
The time restraints are driven by the completion of the new fire station, coterminous with the beginning of construction of the ramp area for the new terminal. We opened bids yesterday for that project. Those bids will be circulated, will be validated, and then will be given to FAA. We anticipate a grant for that work in the near future, based on those bids. So if we begin construction, if we get that grant, we begin construction in October, which is also the time when the new fire station would be in place. That would be the appropriate time for us to move the fire services to the north side with whichever provider is chosen. If you were to choose Pro-Tec, Pro-Tec will need time to start up.
How much time would they need, you know?
Between 5 and 6 months. So we're at 5, so we're kind of on the edge.
It's like a month as your best case scenario.
I would be comfortable. The original plan was to get direction from the board, begin negotiations with one of the two, and bring you a contract back for action at the April 27th board meeting. That was an aggressive timetable, but we wanted to keep that front and center so that we could meet the longer range timetable. I believe we can probably push that off until the May board meeting and give us time to sort through all of the issues that have been raised today.
So in May, we would determine, we would make a selection in the May meeting,
Correct.
and then you would work out a final contract to bring back to us at a special meeting or in June.
Preference would be that we have new proposals and we have a contract for you in May.
Okay.
That would be preferable. I would have to, you know, City of Monterey, because they're here, is infinitely more flexible. They have the staffing, they have everything that they need right now, would just be a move to the other side. We need to be careful that we don't box Pro-Tec out of potential by forestalling a decision longer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
that being
fine.
said, I don't think I would want to go much later than the May board meeting to have a decision with contract in hand.
Do you have the time to negotiate?
We'll make the time.
Oh, good.
That's what you pay me for.
Okay.
He and I will be here.
Mr. Chair, if I might, also because we're in the middle of the budget process, I think we've also, I think you're gonna have to be on a really short time frame. Everyone has said, oh, well, this number or that number or whatever. So if they've got something, this isn't like, let's meet every third week and then see if we can figure it out. This is, you've got a time frame. I would like to see something back by April 27th at our meeting. Everybody's obviously got something in their mind that they can negotiate with. I guess bring it and let's see what it is. Because otherwise, we're gonna be really messed up with our budget. And Director Sable and I need to be able to take a look at it early in May so that then we can recommend it to the full board.
Very true, very true.
So,
We can handle this in the way that I would approach this would be conversations with both sides and then give me your best and final. And there you are. Then best and final, I would think under that scenario should be available. I would think it shouldn't be unreasonable to have that available
Okay.
Thank you.
Please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so first of all, thanks to everybody for coming and attending and spending the time here and being so passionate about what you do. I agree with my colleagues. I think that the proposal, both proposals need refinement, one more than the other. It seems to me that the Pro-Tec proposal on the services side is clear. There's some issues there regarding insurance, potentially this vehicle and so on that need to be tightened up. Frankly, the proposal on the Monterey side just needs to, you guys just need to sit down and talk. It's just not done cooking at all. And it needs to be. You guys need to help us get to a tight proposal because it matters. It matters to the tune of millions of dollars. Everything you've said about the subjective argument for going with Monterey rings true. Right? There's no issue with that. But there's no possible way a board can say it's worth $2 million extra when the other proposal is competitive and fully responsive. No way. So we've got to talk, we've got to get there, and we can, and we should. And I understand the compression of time, and I think we just got to make that clear to both respondents, lay it out, and bring it back. That's all I have, Chair.
Well, after having listened to both presentations here, a couple of questions still are resident in my mind. One, I'm a little fuzzy because I'm not a fire person, I'm not a firefighter, I'm not a chief, I'm not certainly an executive director. I'm not clear about the staffing levels that on either proposal. I think the requirements for 2 in, 1 out, what is it we want to do here, what's the deal, what happens if we have a mutual aid agreement and we send 3 people off the property to go help on mutual aid, or if we can't do that from a staffing standpoint and meet FAA requirements, then what? Do we give up mutual aid? I need better answers to those questions. Usually they were answered and I was asleep here or something, but this whole question of how many people are required in order to provide the services with mutual aid, and number 2, here to meet FAA requirements are still a little bit fuzzy to me. And it comes down also to the questions that I asked during the 2 presentations, in particular City of Monterey. What is the value here of having moving the what are we paying for here if we're moving the firehouse from across the run on the other side of the field? Is that a $1.5 million exercise that we're going to in order to obtain what has been very good services from the City of Monterey? I don't think anybody can fault that. But if it's a $1.5 million difference over 10 years, 10-year period, that's $15 million. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to the public. And we do, as Director Loeffel pointed out, we have to cover our costs with charges to the airlines and our concessionaires and all that. We're all self-funded out here. And we also may have to borrow money at some point, to build things, and we don't want to get too far into our reserve. So we've got to be very conscious of this $15 million difference over 10 years. I'm hopeful that with this indecision or lack of clarity on the difference between what we're paying right now for fire services from the City of Monterey and what was being proposed, if that can be narrowed down in a reasonable fashion. I don't know about whether or not it's feasible to run a truck from across the runways or around that access road on on the, at the end of the runway. I don't know whether that's feasible, and if it is feasible, how does that affect our costs with the city of Monterey? And apparently that was a concern for the Pro-Tec people. They are gonna do whatever they do regardless. But on mutual aid, how are they gonna provide the service to the airport if in fact they're gonna be active participants in mutual aid? Those are decisions that that's information I need to go forward on make a decision for a selection. And so I joined my colleagues in sending it back to sending it to staff to go back and get clarity with the city of Monterey on what the difference is between that $1.5 million difference there and what can be done if in fact, as they've stated in their proposals and in their presentation, everything is negotiable. Okay, well, what does that mean? And I think it needs to go back for negotiation. And I think Pro-Tec needs to be a little clear on how they're going to handle this mutual aid and how they're going to do the staffing. And I think there's significant issues as to whether or not they're going to be able to actually negotiate mutual aid agreements with our surrounding jurisdictions here. So I'm in favor of sending it back to the staff to renegotiate and get clarity with both proposers and to do that post haste. And if there's a problem that comes up, then at least advise the members of the finance committee, so that we stay on top of this, because I think the FAA timelines and our other contractual obligations demand that we keep moving forward on all of this. So keep the board involved. As far as I'm concerned, keep the board involved as we go along. So is any of that clear?
Oh, yeah.
Usually I'm rambling all over the place.
It's okay. No, I think I understand what you're saying, and we can carry that forward.
Okay, well, I think if I'm not making an incorrect assumption, that I think that was the universal opinion of the board, universal guidance to go back and get clarity and renegotiate as appropriate. And
that's the direction we were seeking.
okay, and I am assuming that our Monterey partners would be willing to have that discussion with their staff. Okay. So without further ado, if there's anything further you want to say, all right, we're done. We're done with that item. Any public comments about our discussion, to have a discussion? Okay. And thank you all for being in attendance. We appreciate and understand your passion. It's a good thing. So, thank you. I guess our requirement now is to weigh in on this architect proposals, and we have a resolution in place that we're supposed to vote on, and which is in essence to go forward with these architects. And so we have before us the contract. Does anybody have any questions about the contract? Anything you want to discuss before we go into discussing the resolution, taking motions on?
I just like, I was not here in October, I did not participate, but I would just like staff to fill us in a little bit. Is there anything on this that were stumbling blocks, anything that you are like totally comfortable with, that there's anything that we should be aware of? I need some direction here, not just what I'm reading on a resolution and
I can tell you from a more global standpoint, everything that's in the scope of work and everything that's in the contract has been fully vetted. Chris and I negotiated that at length with HOK. The negotiations were very amenable. We were able to find areas where we could cut back on the scope a little bit to hopefully save some money and to save some time. The timeline is aggressive, it's 12 and a half months for design. That's aggressive, but we did that with intent, and that was something that we talked about during the selection process. So I think to answer your question, Director, there's nothing in there that gives us pause at all. The contract itself, the base contract was provided by HOK and modified rather significantly by our council, and there was agreement on that level as well. So I think we're pretty well done and dusted on the negotiations and on the scope of work. I do want to point out that the scope of work, because of the way we selected, covers not just the design of the terminal building, it also covers the design of the parking lot area, the civils, the site civil side on the land side. So if you look at the ASIP, those are broken out into two separate categories. Combine those numbers, and that's what you have in front of you. The final thing I'll say is that we have grant funds available to cover all of this, more than all of this right now. These are grants that came to us through the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, and we've got ample grant proceeds to cover this.
Okay.
And like I would just finally add that there are a couple things you'll notice the last couple pages, pages 38 through 41 of the package are documents that we've already provided to HOK. So they have had a huge data dump of information and documents for them to be able to start and think about the scope as they were doing this. So they're well prepared. Finally, FAA has seen this scope of work and has approved this scope of work as well. So we have checked all the boxes that we need to pre-contract approval. So we are ready to get moving and submit grant applications, plural, for this work.
When you were talking about pages 38, 39, there are all these picture files, these JPGs?
These are document dumps that we provided to HOK. So we provided them with not only pictures, but all of the design documents for the current apron that went out to bid, as well as our infrastructure, our utilities, all of the things that currently exist.
Okay.
They've had all of that information. They've combed through it so that they can be well prepared as they were putting together the scope of work on what the detail needed to look like and what was already available to
Did
them.
they ask for those documents, or did you?
It was a joint venture of them asking and us preparing, because we needed to give them to them. They need to know what the infrastructure currently looks like to be able to design to that infrastructure.
Okay, good. I lost track. And, does anybody want to ask a question about that proposal?
I have a couple.
Okay, sure, go ahead.
So,
Excuse me, what is this? Is this something because that's broken or what?
No,
I'm just a member of the public.
it's an individual who's just recording the meeting.
Oh, you're a member of the public?
He
Okay,
is.
I thought you were somebody we were paying you to.
Another news channel.
I was going to put my bid in for.
Hey, I'll take it. You want to give me money? I'll take it.
Thank you.
next time he's gonna have a makeup consultant. On 541, I thought we could only have 5 gates.
The initial is only for 5 gates. That is what we will be building.
That's why I kept hearing you drill into my head when I kept saying, can't we have 6? And then I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those little things.
No, there are, one is a future, so, and that was made very clear to them, that we are planning the site to be able to have future expansion if necessary. This site didn't allow for that, where we currently are. The whole goal on this is to plan for future expansion if and when that ever comes.
Okay, so I just thought I missed something in the
No, you
October
didn't.
meeting when I wasn't here, and and that we got a miracle
And
and
you
got
can't read it.
6 gates.
There are words and letters, you just can't read them underneath those, as you're looking towards the right where there's 3 and 4, there's some words that says future expansion, I know you
I
can't,
had
read
the
it. It's
same
very small.
question, Mary Ann, could I build on what you, because I had a question as to, are we paying for the design of that 6th?
No,
No, but when you know that you're ultimately going to be planning on expansion at some point, that consideration has to be taken into account when you design the original, and that was the intent.
Okay, so,
Okay.
and that makes me happy, that was, like,
All right.
that's good. And then, what's allowed here for them to come for community involvement?
There is a charrette with you, and then we have also built in the opportunity for you to invite 5 people each to a public session where you can get their input as well. So all that's built in here, which then gives you the opportunity to tell us what your vision is, to hear from community members what their vision is, and to have that information shared with the architects.
Mary, can I follow up on that?
Sure.
I just want to make sure I understand the public input. So 2 charrettes
A charrette with the board,
Charrette
and a
board.
charrette with the public.
with the public.
Yeah.
And the 5 each, is that just some kind of random sort of crowd control measure, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's simply it.
Okay.
There's-
Why would we
And
limit it?
well, there will also be the opportunity on a website to also have other input, but for that visioning to be able, for them to be able to control that process and get solid information, you need to, we've said 5, so we have over 30 people in the room at one time, so they can control it, but there will be ways for other people to still have input. So it's not just that, but with the one-on-ones.
Yeah.
What's a charrette?
Charrette is kind of like a
You think it's a
brainstorming session.
workshop?
Yeah, Scott just asked that. It's kind of like a brainstorming session. You'll look at what your likes are and what your dislikes are, what your color, what your feelings are. When someone says to you, just as an example, you want a sense of place, the charrette will help you define for the architects what your vision of sense of place is.
It might be, do you want to have a coffee shop? Do you want to have parking next to the building? I mean, it's open to anything, Bill, that you can say. So I'm just going to say, this is a huge expense. It's a huge commitment to the community. I cannot see limiting it to one meeting that the community is involved in. And I don't care how we do it, but I believe if we just put up whiteboards and said, what would you like to see in a new terminal? And we don't even have to have the architects here. We just have it open where people can come in and say what they would like to see in a terminal. What's important to them when they travel? And I mean, they may come up with nail salons, massages, children's kitty corners. I see all this in all these terminals. People may give us all of that, but I think we need to hear from them and not limit it. Because if we all are going to choose 5 people, we're going to choose 5 people that we talk to who may have the same views as us. I don't think that's a good thing. I think we need to open it.
There would be no reason for us not to do that. We just built it so that the architects could get a flavor of, and then go start their work. We can continue to cultivate that kind of.
I think we need to do that part right now before they start. Because otherwise, I know what happens.
That's the first step, that is their first step. Yeah, before they put pen on paper, that would be their first step.
Yeah.
But Chris, I'm saying it's our step even before that we do additional ones. Because I don't want to presuppose what somebody that's 21 thinks should be in a terminal. When I think, it should have all the things for me that's older. I just think we need to do that. And otherwise, I believe that the community will find fault with us, and I would have to say that I would find fault with us too. So it's a little more staff time, I get it, but it's not complicated, it's not hard. And we're not coming to tell them what we think, we're just gathering information. That's all.
There's There's nothing that would preclude us from doing that. Nothing at all. If
And that's
the
the
So let
plan.
me just put stop that. I would strongly urge that we, at the front end of the charrette process, go with a open public session. I mean, quite frankly, I'm not worried about Kassabaum showing up to our charrettes. I mean, I wish we'd get more, but I'm not worried about that. I am worried about not taking early public input
That's
in
the
a
first month and a
design
half,
process.
yeah, and that is the first month and a half there
Okay.
before they even get to any design, that is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we can, in that month and a half, do our own exercise with the community as well. It's not a problem.
Okay.
See, I had just the opposite problem. I was thinking, do I know 5 people?
Aren't you a builder?
Yeah, owner-builder, you know, I have participated in charrettes before that architectural firms have done for city projects. Usually they try to get a wide variety of people in place. I think it's smart to invite people because we've had it before where we open up to the public and nobody shows up until the plan is done and then people take exception to it. But, you know, they didn't really participate. So, yeah, for us inviting people, I think would be good. The charrettes that I've seen that have been successful, everything gets thrown on the board and then you usually you give people a number of stickers and they put up the ones that apply to them and you focus in on what's important to the group that's there. You talked about the grant. Is the grant specific to planning or can it be used for other things?
The grants that we have under the bill
Yes,
infrastructure,
for this that we're going to use.
these are specific to the design,
To the terminal project, the terminal design.
the terminal complex design, and any support we need to go along with that design.
So
it
we
would be
couldn't use it to build something. This is specific for that, and you got more money than you need. That's great. Good job. So what other questions do I have here? Yeah, this 6th gate for the future. Are they actually going to build the building out a little bit longer? Have we gotten that far?
No, not likely. We'll have
Okay.
6 gates, but the planning for that addition needs to be part of the original design.
So you could bolt something on fairly easily without too much effort?
Yeah, in theory. A simplistic view would say, yeah.
Yeah, maybe
A
have,
blue tarp at the end
yeah.
of the day.
Gate building, grants, no, those are all the questions I had. Good job, guys, thank you.
Nothing further.
Nothing further?
Thank you.
Well, as I want to do, I got some questions here, and it's partially due to the fact that I may not have read it carefully enough, so help me with this a little bit. Where is the RFP for this? Did we actually have a proposal?
We did a
Oh, yeah.
request.
Where is it?
You did it and you approved it in October.
Yeah, we had people here that we interviewed.
Well, we had people to interview in here, and was there an RFP for that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
The reason that I asked that, because I'm notorious for losing stuff at home. So I went on the website for that October 21st or 22nd thing, and nothing was there. So I looked around for other RFPs, related other places on the website for that RFP. It wasn't there. There is nothing about the RFP on there. And so I couldn't recover it for that meeting because apparently we didn't post it at that time, or maybe we did and we took it down.
No, it was clearly posted.
It was clearly posted.
It was clearly posted.
But we haven't awarded the contract, but we took the RFP down before.
But you went through the selection process.
Yeah.
And we've been negotiating for the last couple of months.
Well,
and still
you know,
working.
okay. I want to restate this clearly, and I'm bringing up again, you know, RFPs are a part of our business here, and until we award the contract, I don't think it's appropriate to take all the information related to that potential contract down and see whether or not they were, well, from board standpoint, whether they were responsive to the RFP. So that's just a comment I have. And on page, let's see, page 1 of 3, I didn't quite understand under that discussion at the bottom, the dollars. We've got a lot of things in there. We've got entitlement grants, bills, grants for terminal design. So how is this getting paid for? You know, which grants are we using to pay for this thing?
Both, and the reason they're separated there is because they have different matching requirements. So our bill entitlements come in at 90.66% FAA, and we have to match it with 9.34%. The $3 million that we got through the competitive bill ATP program, Airport Terminal Program, it's actually 95% FAA and 5% match. And that's why we're moving this forward, because that ATP money comes in at a higher FAA input. So it's really good for us to get as many dollars out of that ATP terminal program as we can, because it's almost 5% less that comes out of our match. So this is coming out of both those programs. We'll use the $3 million up to the penny, and then we will go to the 4.2 that we have available and use as much of the balance of the contracts under that component. And FAA said we'll do percentages. So if it's the
Okay, so how much is it? How many district funds are we going to have to put in? I understand it's PFC money, but it's not. It's our money. Okay, so how much PFC district funds are we putting into this project?
Well, we also have administrative costs that will be on top of this. So this is just this one contract. For the $3 million, we'll put in $150,000. And then for the balance of it, we'll put in the 90.66, which would be probably about $200,000 in that range. I haven't done the exact, because again, we have to put it all together and add our administrative costs on top of it.
So it's going to, out of PFC funds, we're going to put $200,000 plus some undetermined amount of administrative costs in there? Is that kind of what I get?
And yes, the administrative costs would come at the same FAA percentage, 90.66 and 9.34.
I wish it had been a little clearer here as to how much district funds we're going to put in. And I understand that it's PFC, but it's not free. The other question that I had is on page 2 of 3 in the staff report, it says negotiated costs. Who did the negotiating? I mean, we already negotiated this contract? Is that, how does that work? We already negotiated with the contractor?
With the architect, yes, we have
Yeah.
negotiated.
They would be the
What you have in front
contractor,
of you is the product of those negotiations.
What was the result of those negotiations? Did they lower the price or what?
The negotiations really were around the scope to begin with. Obviously, you have to negotiate what you're going to pay for, so the scope became the primary focus for negotiations. And we were able to pull some things out of their original proposed scope that helped save money. But when you do that, what you do is you negotiate the scope of work first. And we did that. And then the negotiated scope of work, the agreed upon scope of work, is then priced by the consultant, or in this case, the architect. They provided us with that cost, and then we went through the independent fee estimate process, where that proposed fee was reviewed by another firm to confirm that it is in fact in line with market standard. So we've gone through all of that, and quite successfully, we were able to reduce the scope in some places that we felt maybe there was a little bit too much, and we were able to extract from the contractor, from the architect, a price that met market standards. And that
Okay,
was
is that
verified
that
by IFYE.
IFYE, whatever that is?
Yeah,
I mean,
independent
what
fee
is
estimate.
that?
That's a third-party review of
Is
the
that Kimley
cost.
Horn doing that? Or-
In
On
this
this
case,
one,
it was.
it's
yes.
Kinley Horn with their subcontractors do that. That is a federal requirement for grants that we follow for every consultant contract that we do. So it's a
Okay.
requirement. So you hand over the scope of work to someone that's gonna do your independent fee estimate. And they tell you what it's gonna cost, then you get your cost from the actual consultant and you compare all of the two. And you make sure that everyone understands the scope, and we came within 7% of each other, which in FA's world is perfect. It has to be within 10% to be considered a good quote or a good cost. So we've done all that.
Okay, so Kimley Horn looked at it and they said, okay, that works at 7%.
They looked at it and they gave us their fee for doing the same work, using their consultants. So they gave us a
Oh,
fee
okay.
that was for the whole piece of work, and then we look at the two, the one that they have, and then we get the fee from the actual consultant that's doing the work, and we compare them.
Okay,
And if they are off by a lot of percent, then you start talking to them. Did you understand that this is, how did you come to this conclusion on the scope? How did
Okay.
you come to this?
so did our proposer come in 7% higher than Kimley Horn?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Is there any reason why they did?
I think that's just a function of the size of the company.
Okay.
It's not unusual for a larger company
All right.
like we selected.
I noticed in that page 5.1, they didn't never mention Kimley Horn. They were just going to, there was no mention of coordinating with our Kimley Horn, who I think we're paying a couple $1 million to review the work that is done by our contractors. Now maybe I'm wrong, maybe Kimley Horn is only overseeing hard construction costs out here. But is Kimley Horn involved in this contract? Are they determining whether or not the work that this outfit is doing is good, or are they staying on budget, or what's Kimley Horn's role, if there is a role in this one?
They will have a role, so we will come back to you, and those costs will be added to the grant. So that's when I was telling you, there are support costs that will be added to the grant besides this one contract. We will bring back a contract amendment to you for Kimley Horn to look over the design, because we have a responsibility to look at design and make sure it meets California building codes. So that will be part of what they will be doing. So we will, yes, be bringing a contract forward,
Okay.
amendment forward at
So
a future meeting.
there's an additional cost here for Kimley Horn to do this
Correct.
review?
Yes, this is just for the
And I was a little
architect.
concerned here, and I'm getting a little nitpicky about this contract. This is something we're gonna live with here going forward. And they wrote this contract, we didn't, okay? And Scott, I'm sure you reviewed what they wrote, but they're gonna write it in their benefit. They never mentioned anything about coordinating with an outfit like Kimley Horn. They were just going to deliver stuff over, to you, Mike.
They deliver over to us being part, Kimley Horn being part of us as our program manager, yes.
I wouldn't want a conflict to go, I've done a fair amount of business with architects, and they get a little snitty every once in a while. We do, you told us, Mike, you told us what you wanted, and we're not handing stuff over to Kimley Horn, what the hell do they know about it, So, considering that they didn't even mention our representative in here, I'm a little concerned about that. And I would like to see that they acknowledge the fact that we had somebody looking over their shoulder. Is there any way to do that in this agreement?
I think they will not have a choice in that matter. When we bring to you a contract for Kimley Horn's program management services for this component, they will be told that our program manager is Kimberly Horn.
Now,
We've already
I
had
know that,
a
yeah.
lot of work with Kimberly Horn.
I'm pretty sure that this kind of goes along with stuff that you've done before, but I guess I feel as one director, I'm a little more comfortable if they acknowledged up front that they're gonna be working with our representative out here, even if it was just a memo to them or an email to them.
Well, I would speak to those pages I pointed out to you, pages 38 through 41. Kimberly Horn already gave them all that. They've already had those discussions. They know that explicitly.
I understand, and I was pretty sure that that happened. I just like, it words mean something to me when we have to live with a contract going forward, and they have to live with a contract, then we know everybody's friendly here, you know.
We can without question provide them with
Okay,
formal notification.
please do that, and,
After you approve the amendment.
let's see, I was a little concerned, this may be standard, standard architecture language, and doing business with architects, I have this sneaking remembrance of this kind of controversy coming up. They own the damn stuff that we paid them to create, and they're just gonna license it to us, and, I mean, that bothers me a lot. Scott, could you weigh in on that a little bit?
Yes.
If we want to do something else with this thing, we want to provide those documents to somebody else for other purposes that we have to get their permission, and if they
Yes.
withhold their permission, we have to pay them, or what? How's
So the documents you get, these are copyrighted. When an engineer
that? Oh,
puts
they copyrighted them.
when an engineer puts their stamp on a document, on blueprints, they're copyrighted. Whether it's buildings for a home or for a remodel, or anytime an architect puts their stamp on it, those are copyright protected. You have the right to use it, you have the right to, you know, in this instance, the plans will be intended for our use here for this property. You would not be able to take the plans and go to Marina and build them at Marina without getting permission of the architect. Now, forget for a moment that you don't run the Marina Airport and that would be feasibly impossible. Forget that for a moment. But the idea is you will own the plans, you'll get to use them and do with them as
We
you
don't own the
need.
plans, they say we don't own them.
No. You will have a copy of the plans and the rights to do what you need to do with them to build the building that you need here. You will have all the rights you need, right?
That's industry standard, so
It
this
is,
isn't anything.
I was just getting to that. It is absolutely industry standard. In fact, one of the standard responses when someone comes in under the Public Records Act, all public agencies, it's deemed that all records are public. When someone says, great, I'd like a copy of those plans, immediately you say, sorry, I can't give them to you, they're copyrighted. You can look at them, you can't take a picture, and you can't photocopy it.
Okay, well, I don't like it, I didn't like it when I've had to deal with this in the past, you know, I'm paying $5 million for something, and, I have to get your permission to, share this with our friendly airport that wants to see what we did, you know.
You will be able to share the plans, and there will be, you'll be able to, for example, you'll be able to have all the legal rights you need. What they're referring to here is the large-scale printed plans. They own the design. They do own it.
Okay.
So it is industry standard. I'm not saying it's a great standard, but it's industry standard.
I get it. Okay.
Well, we don't want to be providing that under public records request. That could cost us a fortune to produce.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to. Well, you couldn't, actually.
Okay.
But sometimes they'll scale them down to like 8.5 by 11 page or something.
Let's see. On page 5, item, I think that's 5 of 10, that's item 9.3. There was discussions about errors and omissions. Page 5. And that was, I didn't understand that.
5.10, is that what you said?
Page 5 of 10.
5
And
of
it's paragraph 9.3. I don't know, they kind of said, you know, if we did something wrong, we forgot something and all that. We won't really decide whether or not we're gonna pay you for that until the end of the contract. So could you explain that paragraph to me?
This is one we argued about. This is one of the paragraphs we argued about. And I said, this to me says, that it may include errors, and we're okay with it including errors, and I'm telling you, I'm not okay with your documents including errors. And they said, that's not what it says. And I said, well, then explain it to me. So what this says is that the standard of care in the industry, in that industry, is that there is a particular standard of care for architectural documents, and that they will meet the standard of care. And if there are errors and omissions, they will correct it. What they are reserving the right to do is to determine what the extent of the corrections mean. For example, if it requires a building to be partially demoed and demolished and rebuilt, then we're going to have to determine what is the cost of that. We do that at the back end, not at the front end. And again, we went back and forth on this provision. This is not my favorite. I will tell you, I tried striking it, then I tried revising it. They did let me revise it, and I've revised it to a point where now I'm good with it. I wouldn't have included it originally, but it's one that they insisted on.
Insist upon it to the point of not getting this contract? I mean, to me, that's a little snotty on their part. They're saying, here's, we'll do things our way, and you're the client. You represent us as the client. And you say, we don't like that. Well, like it or lump it. Are they willing to say no to the contract over that?
Can I say something here? So what I have observed over the years, living with the builder side of it, is that sometimes plans, when the builder actually gets into it, there's something slight that doesn't work. It's just the way a duct is going to go in or something. I don't know. I listen to that's at my house. So I read this to understand that they may make a mistake when they're drawing, because when it gets to the actual function, that there is something that needs to be tweaked in some way. That's how I read it. So they're saying, hey, we might, and I don't know, I think it's pretty standard that sometimes things do happen between the architect and the contractor of how something's going to build, how something's going to be put into process. So I don't have a problem with it, Bill. I read it and I went, and then I went back and kind of put practical knowledge with it, and I went, okay, I get it. So I don't think it's letting them off the hook.
I can't imagine what you're going to do if we confront a situation where this comes up. I don't know, what are you going to do? It sounds like they wrote the orders and you say, here, like it or lump it, and you didn't like it, I don't like it, and we're doing it anyway.
But you're forgetting the part where I modified this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I modified this.
What modification did you?
So.
Because you said Sabo's going to do it.
So what I said was, I said, you're telling me your plans might include errors in them?
Yeah.
I don't like that. And they said, well, so the part that we modified is the part where it says that HOK will amend their plans as part of the basic service. In other words, if we find out, for example, when you build a multi-story building that's huge, that's how many square feet is it? 70,000 square feet? 62,000 square feet. You have plumbing and you have electrical and you have all kinds of utilities that are running through this building in all different areas. And if for some reason during the construction, as board member Leffel said, if at some point during construction they realize, oh wait a minute, this drain pipe doesn't work in this location like we have it on the plans, we have to move it. They agree, they're gonna modify the plans to move it. And,
At no cost?
At no cost.
Is
That's-
this
that's-
part of their basic service?
That's part of the basic service, at no cost.
All right, I'll let it go. I think you understand why I'm concerned. I don't understand everything that you understand, because I'm not married to Hal, so.
I just said listen.
And it shouldn't be, so, but you can go to, if they don't interpret it the way you just described it, are you prepared to go to court with them?
I am.
Okay.
And in fact, after we met with my modifications, they said, yeah, we agree, we're fine with that.
Okay, I don't have any reason to doubt them, but this is a, $5 million contract, and it's something that we don't want to get into crosswise about, oh, well, that's gonna cost you more money, even though we screwed it up. Okay, and then, on page 9 of 10, item 18.4, there's something, there's no waiver on the comment on this thing. Page 9 of 10. Let me look at this. 18.4 says the failure of either party to insist in any one of or more instances on the performance of any obligation or right under this agreement does not constitute a waiver or relinquishment of such obligation or right with respect to future performance. What the hell are they saying? And would you put that in waivers terms there?
Sure, tell me the paragraph, I know exactly, it's what we call boilerplate language.
18.4.
So what that says is, if there's a provision of the contract that requires them to do something, and we don't, if they don't do it, if we don't enforce that right, we don't lose the right to enforce any other portion of the agreement. Unfortunately, under contract law, in the old days, if you didn't enforce every provision, you lost the right to enforce others if you didn't enforce certain ones. So what this says is, the fact that there may be a provision that one or the other party has to do, usually has to do with payment, by the way.
Okay.
If we don't enforce that, it doesn't mean we can't enforce some of the others. That's all that says.
Okay. I figured there was some legalese that I wasn't.
Yeah. Well, it is what we call boilerplate language.
Yes.
It's-
Yeah, I know. They have a whole file cabinet full of boilerplate, and yet they said, here's our contract for you. And then I didn't see it because I didn't look maybe far enough, but what if they fail to perform on time? What penalties do they assume? I didn't see anything that says, we got a timeline and we expect to be done by this time, and in 6 months after that time, they're still not done. Is there a penalty, or how does that work?
Yes, there is. Let me find it. Actually, it'd be easier if I search it. Okay, so in item 4, in paragraph 4.1, it talks about the schedule. In attachment A, exhibit A, I'm sorry, exhibit A,
It's on page 4 is the schedule.
page 4. So there you go.
Yeah.
So on page 4 of 41,
Yeah.
you see there's the schedule.
Yeah, I see that.
Now, it does say there are some reasons where that schedule may be extended, force
Sure.
majeure, and, things that are uncontrollable.
I get that part, but what if there are no force majeures and everything, we did everything we were supposed to, and, well, stuff happens, we'll get it to you. You're like my mechanic, you know. How long is it gonna take to do my, it might take 2 weeks. You know. 2 weeks means to him 6 weeks and maybe, you know. So this is kind of critical that we get this performance reasonably on time. Is that a true statement there, Mike?
Yeah, it is clearly our preference to stay on schedule, and we will do everything we can to keep them on schedule. And if you're asking about liquidated damages
Yeah,
associated with the schedule.
If we lose money,
Design.
grant money because if they're not done, then now what? That's kind of where I'm going.
So paragraph 16.2 says, HOK has a duty to indemnify and hold client harmless from damages resulting from negligence, fraud, and/or criminal activity. Just not complying with the timeline may be okay for your mechanic, but it's not okay for these guys.
It's not okay for.
Nope, it's not okay for HOK. They have to comply with the timeline.
Okay, and if we could
Or it will be
identify
damages.
that we lost a grant funding from the FAA,
Yeah.
is that damages?
That, it is damages, and that would be, it would be, not only would they be liable for that, so would their errors and omissions. Their professional negligence policy.
Well,
If you don't need
16.3 even defines it more.
Yep.
16.3 defines
Well,
it.
I confess that I didn't read this, I was starting to get a little blurry-eyed, but you can, if we didn't get an FAA grant, do you feel confident that you could say, you didn't perform on time, we were 2.5 months late compared to your schedule, we understand there was no rain, we'd have an earthquake. You could go to court and say, Judge, I want them to pay us, or I want their insurance company to pay us for that.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
You can do that?
Yes.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Let me tell you,
Even if
this,
I'm at my grave.
this would not be in the agenda if I didn't feel comfortable with the agreement.
Okay,
as
I
we know.
understand, we got a lot of faith in you, but I'm asking these questions because we're the ones that, are signing this stuff.
I get it.
Geez, I'm the guy that has to sign that we did this,
I get it.
Sonny just disappeared. Anyhow, okay, my comments about this proposal, based upon the answers to my questions, or that I can support the resolution, and I'm open to accepting, unless there's.
Can I have-
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Charlie, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I have a hard time remembering what I had for dinner 2 nights ago. And October was a long time ago for this company. Remind us again about HOK. I mean, this is a pretty big outfit. It's a very small industry. I would assume if they've had any problems on other projects, it would be well known. How do they rate in the airport world?
They're very well respected. They are a big house, big firm. So they dabble more in major projects. This is not a major project for them. But the response that we've gotten from them has, let me back up. When we did the final interviews, there were two candidate firms. One was a large firm, HOK, and the other was a firm I can't remember the name of. Alliance, thank you. Alliance was a small firm. You get a different level of service from them. And I was hesitant to give you my recommendation on HOK, but I gave you that because, quite frankly, they were able to scale down their approach to reflect the size of the project, to reflect the size of our organization. And I felt very comfortable in it. And that's come through in spades in our discussions with them. We're always dealing with the same group of people, and we've been assured, as you were, that it will always be just these 5 people that we deal with.
And I think what impressed me the most out of that meeting was they came with everybody. Everybody involved in the project. They were all sitting there and answering questions, and they have pretty clear areas of expertise and what they're going to be doing in the project. So, I mean, they really were organized and presented that way. I mean,
Yeah.
what you want an engineer to do or an architect.
It's because they built a team, and that's the team that we're going to work with
through the
But that's the
entirety
same
of the
team you've been
project.
working with during your conversations, the
Yeah.
same one that was here?
Absolutely, not a change in face, not a change in person.
Okay.
And they've told us that that will be our team throughout the entirety, and we're not open to it,
Okay,
unless something quite unusual happens.
okay, good.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to move that we adopt resolution number 1844, a resolution authorizing professional services agreement with Hellmuth, Obata, and Kassabaum, Inc. for design of the relocated passenger terminal complex.
Second. I beat you to that,
You did. By a hair.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Everybody understand the motion? And so going forward, if I don't hear anything, please do a roll call. Go ahead.
Director Pick,
Yes.
Director Laffel,
Yes.
Director Sabo,
Yes.
Director Miller.
yes.
I just want to confirm that there's one member of the public here. Did anybody want to make a comment on this
sorry.
item? I assume there weren't any, but yeah, okay. Otherwise I would have stopped the vote, but I assume that no one wanted to make a comment. And
It's too late anyway.
So we're good. Yep, we're good.
Good. Keep forgetting, we do have a public person here. And that we have reached the published end of the agenda, and since I didn't have, nor did the chairman have a chance to weigh in on this agenda before it went to public, I'd just like to add a couple of, a future agenda item area on this thing, because I think it really is important, and we'll bring it up again at future board meetings, but one, I think we need to look at our contracting procedures at a future meeting, and that is to separate, specifically to separate out cost proposals from the specifications proposals for our contracts. And number two, I think we need to have a policy that we will post our request for proposals on the website in an easily defined manner, and that they will remain there until the contract is awarded. Finally, I guess we need to deal with these are three different items now. And the third one being is we need to relook at our governance manual regarding the preparation of the agenda. It has become apparent that we have agendas being developed and published without any involvement from the chair or any other board member on the thing, and I think that needs to be clarified in our governance manual. So I'm going to ask that we add that to the agenda as a chairman's discretion. So having said that, I'm all in favor of adjournment. Anybody want to
So
comment
moved.
on adjourning?
Second.
All right, end of story. We're done.